Hello and welcome to the Blackdog episode 296.
Almost there, you fuckers.
Almost there.
I feel we should be lighting candles on an advent calendar like Blue Peter, building up to episode 300.
Yeah, I was going to say, we still haven't worked out what we're actually going to do for 300. It'll probably just be the same as the other 299 piles of arse. So if anyone's got any ideas, do put them up on the Facebook group. That would be great. Anyway, hello, welcome to episode 296. I'm Lee.
I'm Darren.
I'm Jim.
I'm Elton.
And this week we'll see how everyone's week's been briefly, and then we'll move on to the last of Educating Elton month, which has taken approximately 8 weeks. And and we'll be on to our film, which is Guillermo Del Toro's Pans Labyrinth.
Pans people.
Pans people. Yeah. Doing.
I lost my heart to a Starship Trooper. That was hot gossip.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm very sorry. I got the wrong era.
You see, Jim knows.
Completely wrong. There was legs in co between hot gossip and Pans people. Bloody hell.
Good job you didn't say there was hot gossip between legs and co. There you are.
Whoa.
Yeah, I phrased that well, didn't I?
Yeah. But
trained professional.
But enough about the President-elect's First Lady. Sorry. Let's move on to see how everyone's week's been, and we shall start with. Let's start with you, Jim. How's things been, sir?
Somewhat up and down. I had a resurgence of the cold I had. A few weeks ago, I'd nearly lost my voice. But otherwise, I just felt fine, apart from just suddenly not being able to speak. Well, the rest of the cold seemed to have turned up a fortnight later, which meant I had a wonderful, charming cough and just generally be a bit under the weather. But on the upside, had a nice weekend away in the fine city of Newcastle.
Okay.
Where I ate too many steaks, I drank too much, and I went to see Nina Conte, sorry.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, excellent.
Who, if you don't know, is probably one of the leading ventriloquists of the age.
Yep.
And her, this, I mean, I've seen quite a lot of her stuff before in the past, and this tour, the In Your Face tour, is quite unique because one of the things she developed over the years is she has these kind of masks.
Yeah.
Which are remote control operate like these talking mouths she puts on people and turns people into living ventriloquist dummies.
Oh, yes.
Well, for this show, I mean, apart from a little bit with her usual sidekick Monkey as the introduction, is all her getting people up from the audience and ventriloquizing them. So every night is completely different.
Nice.
And it was absolutely hilarious. I mean, what's really stunning about it is the fact is you very quickly forget that actually she doesn't know what these people are going to do because she plays off how they react and their body language and puts words in their mouth, well, literally.
Yeah.
And so she kind of improvising this, 5-way comedy sketch with 5 characters on stage on the fly.
Bloody hell.
I mean, that's really, everyone's seen improv comedy and a lot of it is quite lazy. It's difficult, don't get me wrong, but it's lazy. It's like blah, 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 blah. Ooh, lobster, needless surrealism, ha, ha, ha. And that's you, and the Spike Milligan Q9 Get Out, when you're in search of a punchline. Just go weird. Yeah. Whereas this, actually has back and forth quips, punchlines, characters talking to each other, and you just it's so natural that you forget that she's doing it all.
Yeah, excellent.
Very, very impressive. If she chose near you and you can get tickets, I do guarantee going to see her because it is kind of a one of a kind show, and I say it's kind of, in fact, you could go and see her several times and it'd be different because. Different people and get different things happening entirely. So
yeah, it's a world away from that female ventriloquist with lamb chop.
Oh,
God, yes, a long way off from Shari Lewis. A long way
that's
off.
The word. It's just whenever you say female ventriloquist, that's where my mind immediately goes to. Is this woman with essentially a sock puppet dangling off her arm, making jokes about mint sauce.
No, honest, it's a lamb.
So cool. So you saw her and she was really cool. That sounds really sounds really good. I mean, as you say, improv is always difficult to do at the best of times, but then working with the audience as well has got to be absolutely mind-blowingly difficult.
Improvising with yourself and 5 different characters you're just making. It's just all just reacting to what's happening and making it all flow. It's just it is phenomenal. I mean, I really, I really laughed my head off. It was kind of
cool.
Funniest show I've seen in a long time. And I've seen very good comedians, don't get me wrong, but it was just, because it has that spontaneity to it.
Yeah.
You have that feeling of sort of genuine anarchy that,
yeah.
I don't know if you've...
Anything can happen.
Anything, exactly. And then that's always makes everything even funnier.
Yeah.
But she brought the house, everyone was roaring. So I mean, that was a much needed tonic, proving that laughter is indeed the best medicine.
Oh, very good. That was definitely ending on a thought for the day, wasn't it? Very good. Excellent. Okay, then. Well, let's move on to you then, Elton. How's things round your way, mate?
Not too bad. What have I seen this week? It's pretty much just I've seen Arrival.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen The Grand Tour.
Okay, cool.
The return of the Clarkson, Hammond and May to our TV screens.
The Holy Trinity, I think, is the first episode it was called.
Yeah.
Okay, well, which one do you want to talk about first? Because I know I've seen both.
I don't want to give any spoilers for either of them, but I'll do the Arrival first, or Arrival first.
Arrival, yep.
Disappointed, very disappointed. It's thinking man's sci-fi, which I like, but I just didn't like it. I got it, I understood it, just didn't work for me.
Okay.
I don't know why though. I don't know. I don't know why.
The problem is with a film like that, you can't talk about it without spoiling it. So maybe, I don't know, if there's people out there who want it, maybe we could have a little special to talk about it, because I think that, I don't know, I think it's one of those things that you'll talk it over and it'll change in your head.
Oh, it's a talky one, is it?
It's a talky one.
Oh, man.
Once you start talking those things around. But I'm not saying that you're wrong.
Then I want to watch it again. No, that's not fair. Can't do that to me.
So if anybody fancies a Blackdog special on the Arrival, then let us know on the Facebook group and we'll sort one out. But yeah, I can't. I would like to say a lot of stuff, but I know that Jim, I don't think you've seen it, have you?
I've not. I'm trying to make plans to see it though. As you gave such a glowing recommendation last week, and that doesn't happen often.
No, that is very true. That is very true. Sadly enough, but
I've heard a lot of. It's one that I've not wanted to delve too deep into the reviews because it is that kind of. I've seen the trailer. Okay, that's enough. I know enough. I don't need to know any more. But I've heard a lot of the people say it's a very interesting, very good movie, and it's kind of okay. I'll try and get to see this then, if possible.
Okay, well, maybe we'll come back to that one. We'll put a pin in that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Arrival. Then just note that down on my little piece of paper. And
he's actually writing it down.
I am. I'm putting a little tiny angry face beside it as well. So, okay then. So, what about Grand Tour then? Without spoiling it, what did you think?
I thought it was very good. It was funny in places. Skits went on a little bit too long for me, though.
Yeah, there was a little less control than you get with something like the BBC saying, no, this has to be 20 minutes long.
Yeah, but I feel that they may have got that out of their system and it'll be a roaring success from then on. But I can't see them guys doing anything bad, really. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. It's a totally different feel from when I saw the new Top Gear that they brought out.
Yeah.
Where it was, okay, it's not great, but hopefully it'll get better. But this was, no, this is good. This is what everyone wants to see. 3 mates just driving around having a bit of a laugh. And why the fuck not? Because they can. Excellent. I think everyone would do that.
Yeah.
But there's bits that they're trying out. They're not actors. And that's where it falls down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think after a little time, after a little practice and so forth, I think it'll find its feet and it'll be a roaring success.
I think it's always, in the case of Grand Tour and in the old Top Gear before, the latest shambles, I always thought that the key was that they'd have to have something silly happen that would be funny.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be the sort of split between the stuff that they'd scripted that they'd fall back on, and there'd be this stuff that actually just spontaneously happened, and the editor just went, "Well, that's funny. I'll leave that in."
Yeah,
and you could always tell. So, like for example, with that episode of Top Gear when they built the car for the old ladies down in Eastbourne, they took them out to bingo, and they had the cat on the roof. And it clearly wasn't. It clearly fell off by accident, and then they made a skit out of it by having like the cat in the litter box with a cross sticking out of it, and the cross was clearly made up literally on the side of the road, and it was a lot funnier for that. Whereas the thing like with the sort of like the Robin Reliant rolling over, which was funny, but it wasn't as funny as as say like. Maid going around in his ambulance and firing someone through a window using hydraulic ram or something.
Yeah, the car's rolling over like that. It is more okay. Right, this is how it's going to roll. You'd hit this marker, you turn it here, and that's how it's rolled. Yeah. It's just too staged, and I felt with the skits on this episode. They just went on just a tiny... They need to rein it in just a little bit. Yeah. Just a tiny bit. Yeah. And then you've got it perfect.
Yeah. But, I mean, for a first go, I mean, I have to say I watched it and it was like, to use a Mark Kermode phrase when he talks about sort of sequels to films that he likes, he just goes, and we're back. It's literally just like, you just go, yep, here we are. Thanks very much. I didn't like the opening bit with talking to a bunch of crazed nutters at Burning Man, but
no,
that was just weird. But
it wasn't Burning Man though.
No, but it's the Burning Van. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but
Burning Van. Yeah.
But the thing was, it was just like that was trying a little too hard, and the crowd were clearly just rounded up from just randoms out in the street. But yeah, no, I quite dug it, and I have to say, say what you like about about Clarkson and Co. outside of the show, fine, whatever. You hold your opinions and you do you. But as far as I'm concerned, that TV show made me laugh, and I don't care. I'm fed up. I'm fed up apologising and being shamed by people for liking things.
Yeah,
because it doesn't fit a particular thing. It doesn't fit a particular narrative in society today. Oh no, you don't like that now. He has said something wrong. We disapprove. It must now be kiboshed. So
that's right. Yeah.
Now fuck off. I'm like what I like. You like what you like, and don't shame me.
Yeah.
I'm fed up with it. Anyway, carry on. So
no, that is it. That is my week in a nutshell.
That has been it. You've just been sat in front of the telly.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, I'm looking for a new series to watch as well. Because I've finished my rewatch of Battlestar Galactica, but I want to watch something different.
Good.
Yeah, something good, yeah.
Go on Netflix and look for The Expanse.
Oh, okay. There
you go.
I've heard you and all that lot mention it on Space Doc Jury.
Yeah,
so
it's got a Galactica Babylon 5 feel about it. Don't let that put you off if you don't like Babylon 5, but it's got a more the book is really good, but it's basically two stories. One is some kind of weird conspiracy theory to start a war, and then there's a completely separate thread, which is a detective story with a man looking for missing persons on a space station. And at first you think they have nothing in connection, and then by the end they certainly do, unsurprisingly. And
don't say anything more. I've watched it.
I've read the book it's based on, which is by James A. Corey, which is called Leviathan Wakes, and the series itself is literally only half the book. So I'm quite looking forward to where it's going to go next.
Cool.
It's if you like Galactica, you're in the same sort of ballpark, but with a bit more, not desperate against the odds thing all the time, and it does, and because it's based on a book, you at least know that they know where they're going to end up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll look out for that then.
Yes. Also, if you haven't watched it, check out Luke Cage.
Okay.
I know you're not into superheroes, and those superheroes aren't your thing, but it's not really a superhero thing. It just happens to feature a person with superpowers in it.
Right, I'll give it a go.
Trust me, give it a go, because you won't really get the whole superpowers thing until he has to get into an action scene. Until then, it's just like a sort of gangland crime boss kind of affair, you know, good guy trying to make his way in a bad city kind of thing. Trust me, give it a go.
Okay, cool. I will.
Cool. Right, fine. Well, then, moving from Elton with his fluffy slippers and pipe in front of the telly, what about you, Dal?
Well, this week has been nothing but fucking work for me. I didn't have a weekend because I just worked all the way through.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, it's coming up to Christmas, so, need money. So, apart from all that, this week, let's see, what did I watch? Yes, I did watch the Grand Tour, which I really loved. I thought it was better than the original Top Gear, personally.
Okay.
This is my Top Gear as far as I'm concerned. The new sections, or should I say, the sections they introduced, for me works really well, especially the first one. But I should have said the one with the, shall we say, special guests.
Yes.
That for me worked lovely. They caught me totally by surprise. And also just their little chat section as well. The stinger they've got for that, absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
But just very subtle, very nothing to it much, but for me, very funny.
Yeah.
So so I really like that. And I do believe also this week I've watched a film which I'm sure I watched when I was younger, but I thought I'll have a watch of it now. It sits on the dividing line of being, it could go into, just make it into the decent time travel films, or fall on the other side of the fence into the dire time travel films.
A Danny Dyer time travel film.
Yeah, something like that.
Fucking hell, you got my attention now.
Yeah. No, it's a film that, and Jim will probably know this, Lee, you might even know this one as well, called Time After Time.
With Malcolm McDowell? Oh, my word.
I watched that this week. It was on Amazon and it was there for download, so I downloaded it and watched it. Now, it's like I say, it's a bit of a conundrum, this film, because it should be noted, especially for the fact this is a time when Malcolm McDowell didn't just play Malcolm fucking McDowell in a film. Okay, he actually plays a character. He plays H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
In this, the basic premise for this film is it's H.G. Wells versus Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, it's a great film. Well, at least as I remember it, I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah. It's how can I describe it? It's imagine if the people who made Murder, She Wrote, right?
Oh no.
Took that same kind of feel, that how I don't know, Murder, She Wrote, where things like crime and nasty murdering's concerned. Imagine this film is the Murder, She Wrote of time travel films.
Oh,
okay.
God.
This is supposed to be. You've got David Warner, right? Okay, so you've got Malcolm McDowell and David Warner in the same film, right? Okay, both, these are famous genre actors, right? And it's like, fuck me, this has got to be something a bit special, this film. They have David Warner playing Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
But he's the most, out of all the Jack the Rippers I've seen in any film, he's got to be the, I don't know, you can't believe that he's the person going around slicing up prostitutes. Because he seems a bit too kind of scared of what equates to be a librarian chasing him. It's like you'd think that Jack the Ripper is not really going to be scared of anybody. And that, he takes someone like, Malcolm McDowell on, He's just going to cut him up. He's going to shiv him and like gut him. But no, it's none of that at all.
Oh dear.
So this is where it starts erring on the side of not very good. But then at the beginning of the film, when they're showing sort of like Malcolm McDowell being H.G. Wells in his home, that's a really good bit because it starts talking about stuff that's actually associated with Wells. Things like the utopian idea that he's got, the fact that he didn't believe in God, and also he was very much into free love as well. He was very much into all that kind of thing.
Which would explain half of the denizens of Bromley. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But it talks about that as well. You know, it goes into that part, and that I like that. Plus, also, it's a film that plays within its own rules as well. It's a film I've got no kind of problem with on a time travel front because it doesn't do what Terminator does, where it's like, you know, this supercomputer that apparently knows everything doesn't get the gist that, you know, you're not going to change history. Okay, you're just going to make up a parallel universe if you change something. And this film doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You think it might do at one point, but it doesn't. And it gets away. The way it resolves the story is kind of that works. So it's like, this is where the conundrum comes in.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of it sticks to those rules. It doesn't break them. The performance is, as I say, is very Murder, She Wrote. But
is that just the production, though?
I think it might be. Because, I mean, I remember reading about this in, like, Starlog. And I remember the pictures from it and stuff like this and pictures of the time machine that they use in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a divider, this one. It's kind of sat there right on the fence. It's got good points about it, but it's also got bad points.
Okay. I'm almost kind of kind of scared to kind of go back to it because I had good memories of that film.
Yeah, you had good memories of it for good reason. I mean, I'm looking at it now from, like, you know, these eyes through now, not like, you know, back then when I was like, you know, 7 or 8 when it came out. And like I say, I could see things to like in it, but then I could also see some very kind of, as I say, Glenn A. Larson type stuff going on in there.
Yeah.
And you can even, I mean, at first you might think to yourself, well, hold on, he got in a time machine in London and now he's in New York. And if you think about it, there's a reason why he ends up in New York, and it's the sort of like the spinning of the Earth and the fact that his time machine is still, but the Earth has moved underneath him. So when he lands, he's in another country. So if they'd actually put that in there and explain that, maybe.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe it's me papering over the holes in that. But I can kind of accept it from that point of view and not use the cynical terms of, oh, well, it had American money ploughed into it, so they've gone and said, oh, you can start him off in London, but he needs to end up in New York. Or no, actually San Francisco. That's where he ends up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't say anything about it because I haven't seen it in so long.
But it's there on Amazon. It's a Prime job, so it's free, literally, if you've got a Prime account.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I haven't got a Prime account, but yeah. Right. Well,
yeah. There you go.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll check it out. Maybe we'll stick it on the docket. We're gonna have a little chat around it. When I'm closer to actually have seen it, because at the moment I'm trying to remember all the bits and I can't remember anything other than the time machine itself and David Warner constantly going yes.
Did you know who directed it though?
Go on.
Nicholas Meyer.
Yeah.
Mr. Arthur Khan himself.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, you know, it has some pedigree there.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I think yeah. I'd like to give it a spin.
I think it's worth it And you may very well come down in the middle of the fence with it. It's that I can see what's bad about it, but I can also see
I just don't want another Clash of the Titans.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't.
It's not like that.
I mean,
That's
like
a sore point, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it was
yeah.
almost 6 years ago now in Blackdog history, and I still haven't got over the fact that we did it. It's like, oh, we watched that and it was shit.
Yep.
Just no, just wrong. Anyway, anything else, sir?
No, I know there was something that I could have said, spark up the music for, but it's gone.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh,
okay.
oh, yes. Tonight I actually went out for a drink with a old friend of ours, Gordon Little.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Do you want me to spark up the music?
No, it's fine. It's fine. No complaint there. It was good to see him. I hadn't seen him in ages. But,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be still slightly inebriated when I got here, but unfortunately the drink has worn off now. So now back to the cold, hard light of thorough disappointment on a regular basis.
Oh, dear. Well. Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, my week has been one of those, oh, for God's sakes moments. We were doing a project, really urgent, big project, lots of money, lots of, panic. Pulled a late one, worked from 8 till 3 in the morning. Got into work the next day. I'm like, still going to be going like this. Going to fucking get it done. Everything's panic. People come up to me and say, everything you've done is wrong. You've got to do it now. And I'm heart palpitating. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I've done so much work. And then we got an email 2 hours later going, actually, don't bother. We're not going to use it. Nah, it's over. It was like, oh.
Mother flippers.
Yeah. So that's my work stuff. Which then prompted me to say, you know what? I'm tired. Fuck it, and I'm going home. and I went and instead
Screw you guys.
I'm going home. And then basically I met Minty, Sarah, Lucky Minty. For lunch, and then she wanted to get something to eat before I shot off home, because I was still going home, and we went to Five Guys.
There you go.
And so she had a Five Guys for the first time ever, and it was quite funny. I will spare her blushes as to how she was by the end of it, but suffice to say, I think she underestimated precisely how much food was in that bag.
Did she go for a medium-sized fries by any chance?
Yeah, we didn't go. Me and the counter staff both warned her off of getting a large fries.
Yeah.
She
didn't see the coal shovels that they have at the back there that they put the chips on.
No. Yeah, and it was like, okay, just. Yep, and I swore to her I would say no more about it in the podcast, but just all I'm saying is, yeah, a gross underestimation of precisely what was coming through in that bag.
Was it a drawstring bag that she had to carry?
It wasn't far off, to be honest, but like I say, it was her first time there. It's just a case of, I've ordered. I may have made a terrible faux pas in the amount I've ordered. The pair of us walking down the street going, oh. I'm going home. Yeah, I'll see you later. Oh. Anyway, so that was the bright point. The other thing was I went off and did kickboxing. Did a trial lesson of kickboxing, which was
Jean-Claude Metcalf. Excellent.
When you put this up, I had visions. When Bart and Lisa from The Simpsons, they have their fight and they're saying, I'm just going to swing my arms like this, and I'm just going to kick air like this.
Yes.
That's all I had in my head.
Yeah, well, it wasn't far off. It was, how can I put it? Basically, it's like a, these guys do these fight club training things, and they got family days on the Saturday, sorry. So, and they do 2 free lessons just to get you into it, and if you're into it, then you can come back. And I think I will go back to it, but we went there and we walked in. It was like a big empty hall, and they start off. There's like one kid who's like about 2 foot tall, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then there's a girl, and she's sort of like same age as Katie, and then that's it. And it's like, oh, we've made a terrible, terrible error here. And then there's these 2 trainers, and they are your archetypal kickboxers. You know, your baggy trousers, your expertly coiffured, manicured stubble, and beanie hats, and at every opportunity they go, and it just do this, bam, and like knock something off or blow it up, or use the power of their mind to detonate it from a distance, and basically it started off with, oh, you guys are all new, so let's get warmed up. So we start running around this hall, and I'm thinking, what a dick! I feel like such a knob. There's like a 2-year-old, a 12-year-old, and then there's me and the family kind of running round a hall. And it's like, oh god, this is gonna be cringeworthy. Anyway, after about 5 minutes, the guy goes, right, okay, so what we're gonna do is gonna try our kicks and all this sort of stuff. And he started teaching us all these kicks. And by the end of it, I'm like, fucking hell, yeah, bring it on. Give me something good to kick. I want to kick something. Kick it in the face. And he was like, and he starts teaching you how to do, like, roundhouses. And I'm like, ah. And I'm thinking, in my head, I am fucking Chuck Norris. Outside, I'm more like Chuck E. Cheese. But in my head, Chuck Norris. Anyway, so we do a load of this stuff, backwards and forwards, kicking, and basically Carol and Lisa are practicing together, and then there's that, like, Katie and this other girl, they're practicing together, and then there's me and this kung fu master, and I'm going, right, okay, go, and he's moving side to side, and he's doing all the smart spinny moves, and I'm doing all these kicks into this bag and he's carrying, and I'm like, I am fucking Sammo Hung. I am fucking right there. Anyway, gets to the end of this session, and he goes, right, okay, now what we got to do is we've got to do some extra stretches. We got to just do a bit more flexing, just get you used to it. And he did these things, and I'm like, now I'm like, the blood's up. He goes, right, okay, go down on your knees, and then what I want you to do is I want you to squat down, just squat down, and right down as low as you can go, and then just jump up. That's what you got to do. Just do that for 30 seconds. I did that. I needed a fucking oxygen tent. And then he started doing, you have to squat down and then bounce on your sort of balls of your feet and then jump. And it's like, the kids are all jumping about like lunatics. I'm like actually putting my hands on my knees to kind of push myself up with a kind of kind of thing, just kind of sagging to one side. And then it's like, cross your legs, but now don't, instead of crossing your feet underneath your thighs, put the feet together and push. And I'm doing this, and like at that point, my legs just went, you know what? I've had enough of this shit. You're off. And I'm like, oh God almighty. It was just, and then up till right now, my legs feel like all that's happened is I've had an elephant stand on them, and I've been walking around like old man Steptoe for the last 4 days. So yeah, kids, do that. I've practically had a heart attack, and now I have legs that I can't use anymore. So that's good.
Is lesson number 3 when you get to do the splits in between 2 chairs?
Oh, no, they tried to get you to do that already, to stretch. Just like what you do is you put one foot to one side, one foot to the other side, and you bend over and put your hands on the floor, and then you kind of keep walking your feet outwards. And it was
okay.
And it's like trying to get you flexed up, and I'm like, I don't know, I can't do this. I can't do this. I haven't seen my feet outside of my line of sight. I've without the aid of a mirror for years. I can't do this. And sure enough, I couldn't. I went face first. So yeah. So there you go. So that was a thing.
But you're going to go again though?
I think so. I mean,
cool.
We've the thing is we've got lots of stuff happening on Saturdays leading up to Christmas. So what we're going to do is we're going to start as like a New Year's thing, just carry it on. because it was just a free lesson, so we hadn't really lost anything by it. But yeah, so I think I'll give it a go. It'd be quite fun. Yeah, as long as And then they started saying, "Oh yeah, then you're going to get to spar with other people," and it's like spar with other people. Well, I don't know about that. That's just gonna end up badly, isn't it? It's gonna be sort of someone sort of does a little jab into the bag that I'm holding, and I'm just gonna go, "Fuck this! I'm going home," or I'm gonna lunge at him.
Either that, or they'll kick you in the wrong place, and it will just be fucking hell.
Just roll off to the side. Yeah, and 3, 2, 1, kick. That'll be the end of that. Yeah, so that was really it, and the Grand Tour, which we've already talked about. So yeah, basically that's been my week. Yeah, I'm still in incredible amounts of pain. So there you go. So shall we move on then to this film thing?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, shall we? Yeah, let's do it. Pan's Labyrinth. You've seen fuck all. Right, okay, so Pan's Labyrinth. Yes, Pan's Labyrinth, directed by Guillermo Del Toro, produced by Guillermo Del Toro and Bertha Navarro, Alfonso Cuarón, and written by Guillermo Del Toro, starring Sergi Lopez, Maribel Verdú, Ivano Pasquero, Doug Jones, Ariana Gill, and Alex Anguilo. There you go. I did all right for that. Normally I'd stumble all over those words. Right. Anyway, it was released in Cannes, 27th of May 2006, and would later be released to the rest of Europe in October 2006. It was in Spanish language, and it had a budget of 90 million. Who wants to take a guess on how much it made? Let's go with Jim. How much do you think it made?
150 million.
Okay, Darren?
I'd say 130.
Okay, and Elton?
125.
Okay, well, I think you're closest with, it was 83. 83 million.
Oh, Christ, really?
Yeah, really. So Del Toro stated that he considers the story to be a parable influenced by fairy tales, and it addresses continued themes relating to his earlier film, The Devil's Backbone, to which Pan's Labyrinth should be considered a spiritual successor, according to Del Toro in his own director's commentary. The original Spanish title refers to the fauns of Roman mythology. The actual title is El Labertino del Fauno, or the Labyrinth of the Faun. I lost my thing. And the faun is a Greek deity like Pan. However, Del Toro stated that the faun in the film is not actually Pan. The film has a lot of influences. The idea for Pan's Labyrinth came from Del Toro's notebooks, which he said were filled with doodles, ideas, drawings, and plot bits, which he'd been keeping in notebooks for over 20 years. At one point during the production, he left the notebook in a taxi in London, was distraught, but the cabbie actually returned it to him 2 days later. Clearly not an Uber. He thought that we originally wrote a story about a pregnant woman who falls in love with a faun. Sergi Lopez said that Del Toro described the final version of the plot a year and a half before filming. Lopez said that for 2 hours and 2.5 hours he explained to me the movie and all the details. It was incredible. And when he finished, I said, "You have a script?" And he went, "No, nothing's written down." Lopez agreed to act in the movie and received the script a year later. He said that it was exactly the same. It was incredible. And in his little head, he had all the history and a lot of detail and a lot of characters. That's a quote. Del Toro got the idea for the faun from childhood experiences of lucid dreaming. He said he would wake up and the faun would gradually step out from behind his grandfather's clock. Originally, the faun was supposed to be a classic half-man, half-goat, fraught with beauty, but in the end the faun was altered to a goat-faced creature almost completely made from earth, moss, vines and tree bark. He became a mysterious, semi-suspicious relic who gave both the impression of trustworthiness and many signs that warned someone never to confide in him at all. Del Toro said that the film had a strong connection with themes of the devil backbone, in fact, Fernando Teve and Inigo Garcias, who play protagonists in The Devil's Backbone, make cameo appearances as unnamed guerrilla soldiers in Pan's Labyrinth. Some of the other works that he drew on were Lewis Carroll's Alice books, George Borges' Ficones, I can never pronounce that, Arthur Machen's The Great God Pan and White People, and Lord Dunsey's The Blessing of Pan, Algernon Blackwood's Pan's Garden, and Francisco Goya's works. In 2004, Del Toro said, Pan is an original story. Some of my favourite writers, Borges, Blackwood, Machen and Dunsey, have explored the figure of God Pan and the symbol of the labyrinth. These things that I find very compelling, and I'm trying to mix them all together and play with them. It was also influenced by the illustrations of Arthur Rackham. I'll skip the rest. Overall, still received very well. Universally received generally great criticism. Rotten Tomatoes still stands with a score of 95% based on 225 reviews. Site consensus reads that Pan Labyrinth is Alice in Wonderland for grown-ups, with horrors of both reality and fantasy blended together into an extraordinary spellbinding tale. So, we'll leave it there. And it's Educating Elton season, so Elton gets to go last for the final word. So let's get on with this. Jim, what did you think of this film?
Well, it's been a while since I've revisited this film. As I said at the end of last week's, it's one of those films I was very keen to see when it came out, having sort of got on the Del Toro bus very early on from catching Kronos. And this is one of those films that's kind of... Actually, I can understand why the box office was so low, because I was mad keen to see this. Then never bastard came to any cinema near me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it later turned up at the local art house, but that was kind of, after the main release and everything's done and dusted, So this was the first time I saw it. I bought it sight unseen on DVD.
Oh, nice.
And I say it's a film that I was very impressed with, because I'd say it was nice for me to see a director. I'd followed his work, and this really felt like a full flowering. Because he'd paid his dues doing a little film. He'd done some Hollywood stuff and used the Hollywood stuff to get the money to do this kind of movie. And he was playing. I guess he still is to this day. Really, he plays very interesting games sort of between popular film, art house film, popular film, art house film, which works pretty well. And they do actually thematically cross over more than you perhaps first think. And so I was really looking forward to watching this again. And I stuck it on Sunday night after I got home from Newcastle. And I was just quite happily immersed myself once again in its world. It had been long enough for me to have forgotten the various kind of ins and outs and twists and turns. Although, because this is one of these films, it's not so much the plot that sticks with you, it's the imagery.
Yeah,
that lingers in your mind, and it was interesting to watch this time, and try and just dig a bit more into the plot and the themes, because I know where it's all going. Like the first time where you still go, where the hell is this going? Because it's you really don't know where it's where it's going at all. And I think we've seen a lot more of that kind of I don't like to use the word dark fantasy or relative urban fantasy, which is kind of for this kind of it's a bit fantastical, it's magical, a bit horrific, and it's a bit of a wishy-washy sort of term, and it almost feels just doing a film a disservice to slap that on it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I mean, what struck me this time is, firstly, it's just a beautifully, beautifully shot film. And when I did a little bit of research afterwards, I was interested to read that he ensued using a lot of digital effects. And I think really where that really comes into play is the fact that I think these days now when filmmakers are doing a film that is fantastic, whether it's sort of SF or genre or high fantasy, they start monkeying with the goddamn colour palette.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? You get everything's blue or brown or red or yellow. Whereas this has this wonderful, it looks like an old school Hollywood picture. And that's right for the kind of story it is. And it's just, it's just lovely to watch a film with such a big, rich, technical palette. You know what I mean? That hasn't been monkeyed about with.
Yeah.
And that gives the film such, different scenes, different atmospheres, just so beautifully. But it also gives it a reality, which I think is so important for a film like this as well.
Yeah.
I think it blends what fascinates me is the way it blends a fantastical storyline with a very real world storyline. And it intertwines. And when I first watched it, it was kind of, is it real or is it a dream? Blah, 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 blah. The second time I was kind of, I watched it, I was still trying to figure that out. This time I thought, it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
I don't think it really, really matters because it's this little girl's story. It's what she experiences. It doesn't, what's objectively real about it is you're looking at the wrong thing almost. It's not, and I think that's good because I think as we touched on a few weeks ago, it's kind of films that take the fantastic and they sort of go, ha ha ha. Yeah. Is it actually happening or is it all in their heads?
Yes.
It's really just the intellectual equivalent of, ha ha ha, it was all a dream. It sounds cleverer than it is and it actually doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
When it's done well, like Henry James's Turn of the Screw, it works a treat.
Yeah.
But just playing that, is it real? Is it Memorex card?
Yeah.
No, you have to do a bit more work. Otherwise, you just disappoint everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, in this, I think it all fits together. And I mean, I really just love this movie. I mean, I think it's kind of, there's a darkness to it without being just needless horror splatter and woo booga booga monsters.
Yeah.
And it has generally kind of that. I mean, Del Toro loves monsters, most of the ways like Clive Barker does, and he wants to show you these things. And sometimes they're beautiful things, and sometimes they're creepy things, and sometimes they're disgusting things like the Pale Man.
Yeah.
But he wants you to see them, and the way he shoots them, it's kind of, look at this. Look at the imagination behind this. Look at, It's about the creativity, and that's what the story's about as well. It's that kind of, I think, at its heart, it's about the human capacity to be creative in dire situations. And I don't know, getting overly pretentious alert. Woo, woo.
No, it's fine.
But you know what I mean? It's that's kind of the point of it all. I think is the redeeming power of imagination itself.
Yeah.
And that however dark it is, there is also a spark of imagination that can, get you through or get you somewhere at least. I mean, I like the ending. It is this very sort of happy, sad ending. I'm still not sure. Is it a happy ending? Is it a sad ending? I don't know. Oh, that's one we can discuss later.
I was going to say.
But I do like the ending, though. I like it has both those equally.
Yeah.
And it's a film of dualities, and it's right. It gives you a dualist ending that, depending on your particular bent, you can take it however you want and be happy with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of how can I put it? Yeah, it's kind of the end, an ending where you get what you take with you, I guess. Isn't the way of putting it? If you're feeling optimistic, it's an optimistic ending. If you're not, then fuck me, that was a dour ending. But yeah, cool. Okay. Well, let's just get the opinions out, because I think once we get to Elton, we'll go off on a tangent or two. So
I've got my tinfoil hat folded up ready.
Good. I was going to say I've got an entire roll of Bako foil to my side here. Right. Okay. So what about you, Mr. Barnard? What do you think of it?
I really enjoyed this film. Sometimes you just need a film that's got a bad guy who's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he was the fucking worst. And it's so nice to, you know when you find they get it, and you fucking think, yeah, you fucking asked for that. This bloke just deserved more than he actually got, but it was still good enough, especially when I can't remember the name of the servant. Mercedes has it. When she stuck him and then she cut his face open and stuff like this. It's just like you're getting off so lightly. You really are compared to what you've done to other people.
Yeah.
This nasty piece of work.
Yeah.
Where the subject to the ending's concerned, I think you can take it either way. It depends what Muja and you've been saying. It doesn't dismiss either ending. That either point of view, that it's either all going on in her head, and the fact she makes it to the throne in the end is the last dying sort of electrical pulses in her brain before she completely snuffs it, or the fact that she actually was the princess and that she has been released back into the fantasy kingdom. Either works. So really, you know, as you say, you take with it what you bring in.
Yeah,
you really do. It depends on your mood at the time, and I personally would like to think that she did kind of make it back, and that everything that she did see was real.
Okay.
So yeah,
cool.
The special effects in this film are just absolutely first class. They really are. The makeup effects, as with all Del Toro sort of fantasy films, things like Hellboy, and I mean you can see a lot of that running through it. I mean it's all very, very similar.
Yeah.
But it's also it's brilliantly done. It's so detailed, and it just looks lovely. You know, especially things like the tall, slim guy with the eyes in his hands.
The pale guy, I think.
The pale guy. Is that what he's called? Is that the character's name?
The Pale Man.
Pale Man, I think it's. Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry. If you're going to have fantasy figures, then try to make them as left field as possible. And you know, there are very few people in Hollywood or in filmmaking that have that kind of imagination that Del Toro has when it comes to those sort of weird, unimaginable sort of creatures. They're sort of like the quirkiness of it all, like that with the hands in the eyes. It's like that's absolutely brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, it is a fantastic design. I mean, he has a different way of approaching creature design, but I'll get to that one later. But it's essentially most of the time, and he doesn't want to see monsters with teeth bared and eyes flaring and what have you. He always wants them drawn at rest, sitting in a house, doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because that way you get more of a sense of what a creature's like. So you don't get any of these kind of like, whenever you see a design for a monster, an alien or anything like that, you always see them sort of like, you know, one of the concept arts, they're always standing there with sort of arms up and they're all kind of going, you know. And it's like, no, that's when it's angry. Do a creature as if it was just in its natural environment doing fuck all. And
sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say it's just an interesting approach to design. That's all.
Well, I think, you know, going on that, it's the whole air of confidence that the creature has, as in like, look, I don't have to stand here baring my teeth because you just got to take one look at me and now I can take your face off just as much as looking at you.
Yeah.
You know, it's that sort of, it's the power that it puts across in just being there, and it's just its sheer presence rather than its actions. You know, I mean, that's how the best villains are as well. Yeah. They're not over the top. You know, the smoothest ones, the ones that you remember the most, are the ones that don't have to do anything.
No.
But just stand there. You know? They don't have to sort of like cut people's heads off or anything like that. That's it. It's just on the screen.
Cool. Yeah. So how is it? How you know? How are you feeling about it by the end? Were you happy you watched it? Or you just I don't know.
Oh yeah, I was happy I watched it. It kind of I like the sort of like the bow that it ties itself up with at the end, and it's like there you go, end of the film. There's not going to be a sequel to this. You know, this is a self-contained story. There you are. And I felt entertained by it.
Yeah.
And I love the fantastic element of that whole thing, the way it puts that fantastic slant on that time that she's in. Was it World War II?
It's the Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War,
yeah.
right? Okay, so it's pretty near that time anyway. So yeah, it's good. You know, you rooted for the good guys and you really, really hated the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, and I think sometimes black and white hats and not necessarily grey ones. Sometimes you just need that.
Yeah.
You know, just straightforward entertainment. Yep. That's it. None of this trying to second guess a character. No, this is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Right then. Well, for me, I love this film. I think it was really good. There's one or two niggles I have, which are purely from a storytelling perspective, but a lot of these things get hand waved by the fact that it's literally a fairy tale. It's a fable, and so things like when Mercedes gets caught by Vidal, the general, and then basically when she gets away, you know, she stabs him not once, not twice, but 3 times, and rather than kill him, she just goes, you know, come after me and I'll do it again. It's like, why? Just stab him. Go, please.
I don't know. Didn't they mention something about that? If you kill him, he only gets replaced.
Yeah, I know, but nevertheless, it felt like drama for drama's sake, rather than, you know, if someone was just, you know, killed one of your best friends and, you know, killed multiple people, you'd have a bit more of a cob on than just, I'm going to give this to you as a warning. Don't do it again. You know, I mean, you know, but that's just a minor thing. And similarly with the whole thing with the general getting drugged up and kind of, you know, 2 drops were enough to put down the mum, you know, quite easily, but she literally poured like half a bottle into that drink and he drank the fucking lot and he just sort of got a weird lens effect around his head. That was about it. But those 2 bits aside, I mean, it clearly is that's the fairy tale logic coming into play. I mean, as far as it goes, I mean, for me, this is a visually rich, sumptuous-looking film with some interesting themes about isolation, about sort of like retreating into the imagination, like Jim said. You know, the need for a bit of fantasy, a bit of magic in your life, just to take you away from some of the harsher elements. It's like and it's a small child clinging to innocence. You know, when everything around them is forcing them away from that and trying to crush them down. And I found it a really uplifting story. Terribly bleak in places, and you know, but as you say, it's a proper fairy tale, a modern fairy tale. You know, it takes all those themes of kind of, you know, a loss of a parent. You know, not the kind of fairy tales, you know, Beauty and the Beast kind of shenanigans. We're talking like, you know, proper old fashioned Grimm's fairy tale. You know, the mum dies, there's an evil step parent. You know, there's. You know, there's something evil lurking in the woods, the fear of the unknown, a kind of hint towards, you know...
There's a quest,
and
a quest that has barbs and tests hidden in it.
Yeah, and the quests aren't as obvious, the answers aren't as obvious as would first appear. You know, there's a sort of manifest destiny for the hero, and also, you know, the fact that this person starts off as a lowly, you know, the lowest of the low, who has to build herself up in the most terrible of circumstances and face things which would normally, you know, crush a person. And it's that whole indomitable spirit in the face of absolute adversity. I mean, it's a beautiful film. It's really it's a solid, fantastic movie. And it's also really interesting that, you know, in a sort of, I don't know, in a way, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, it could have just so easily, you know, I know this is going to sound really cliche, but, you know, it has a strong female role. All the females in this are strong female roles, and at the time even more unique than it is now. I mean, it's kind of improving now, but not by much. But the point was, it was really interesting to see how, it didn't fall into the old tropes of, she's a girl, and she's a hero, so she has to be a sassy hero, or a sort of steely Clinton back talking sort of snippy snappy kind of hero. It was kind of just straightforward. It's a girl. It could have been a boy. It could have been anyone stuck in a really tough situation, trying to do the best by their mum. And I just thought it was beautiful. I think you could go into so much more subtext. I mean, blimey, Yogi Dave. Hello, I can hear myself. So someone's pulled the headphones out.
That was me. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. No, but I was going to say, Yogi Dave put up a link jokingly on the Facebook group about symbolism within the film.
Yeah.
And while it is clearly boggle-eyed conspiracy theory stuff, there is certainly a lot of symbolism within the film that you can kind of say, "Wow, look, hold on," just everything from from the stuff in the book when she sort of sees before the sun is born. The book gives you that kind of weird uterus kind of blood stain that kind of indicates what's going on, and then that's the same shape as the tree, so there's a whole feminine angle there. She's to get into the she has to return to this moist, dank little sort of tree, which looks like a uterus to sort of pull out the evil within to make it not fallow, and there's a lot of subtext and symbolism in there, which could be dissected for hours. But I won't. In a nutshell, I will just sort of wrap up my bit by just saying that I thought it was beautifully shot. The cinematography was fantastic. I thought the design of this stuff was impeccable. The direction was crisp, and it didn't waste a moment. There was a couple of, like I say, fairy tale logic moments in this plot which I found a bit this time round. But then, as I say, you can hand wave those away. I found the guy who played Vidal did a lot of stuff in the film, which I noticed this time round, which was a lot more. Yes, he is evil, but there is this kind of implication all the way through it that it's something to do with, he is the way he is because his father was in the military and his father died with the watch, and so he's carrying his own demons, which doesn't get explored and would have been nice to get explored, but I guess that would have been a totally different story at that point. But he, even though he was totally evil and sadistic, you kind of got a feeling that he had things going differently, he might not have been like that. He's kind of a product of the war, as it were. And so there's a lot of stuff in there. And I just thought it was a really gorgeous-looking, lovely film. Well made, well shot, well told. And, I was really glad to have watched it again. I must admit, about halfway through, I was thinking, hold on, have I made a mistake here? Because it was just it was being a bit too whimsical, and sometimes whimsy kind of makes me go, oh, fuck. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. So, there you go. No pressure, Elton.
Okay, how the hell do I follow all of that?
Just tell us what you thought of it. I mean, this is the first time you've seen it, sir. I mean, there are no wrong answers. There is no one sitting here judging you. We are judging it. Well, no, there isn't. No. But I mean, honestly, you've never seen this before. We put it up there because you haven't seen it before. So what did you think of it?
Right. Well, I went into this. I think I said towards the end of the last episode that I'm expecting a film of like the Clive Barker monsters and fantasy-laden film.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that.
Okay.
And I was utterly surprised with that as well. It's another case of where we had Pinhead and the Cenobites, and Pinhead being the poster boy, and he's pretty much not in that movie. it's the Boba Fett effect.
Yeah.
And we had the Pale Man, and I'd seen bits of the Pale Man. Turns out I've pretty much seen all of the bits of the Pale Man.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm going into this expecting so much more from that. But what we get is a military story running alongside it. And I fucking love military stories.
Yeah.
And it was such a surprise to have that on there, and in that context, and where Ophelia lives. It's just fucking superb. This is.
Cool.
I would say it probably helps being in Spanish, though.
Okay.
You know the way Wreck is fucking scary.
Yes.
And you're reading. If you're English like us and you're reading the subtitles, you're trying to catch up and read, and the confusion of that also helps with your state of mind during that movie, I feel.
Yeah.
Whereas this, because it's putting it into a different language, or it being in a different language, adds another step and a boundary to what your comprehension is. And so I feel as if it is a fairy tale, but you're also reading that fairy tale, and you get more enjoyment from reading fairy tales than actually seeing them all Hollywoodized up. And I feel it being in Spanish works that way. It works in my head anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought the military side of things, I could see why what Vidal was doing, and not that I agree with him, but you can see why he is doing that. He's trying to bring order to a split country there. But you can also see why they are battling against that.
Yeah.
And I love that little battle that they have in between them. But then you've also got this Ophelia who's... Is it escapism? Is it actually happening? If it is actually happening, fucking hell, man, it's amazing. If it's all in her head, fucking hell, man, what a place to be. Brilliant. But it's so well done that it doesn't really matter if it is in her head or not. I think Jim said that earlier on.
Yeah.
But going towards the end of the film, if it is in her head, then Vidal doesn't see the fawn. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
If it isn't in her head, then Vidal's either high on his drugs or hallucinogenics, and he doesn't see the fawn. So it works both ways from that point of view. So, but I like the ambiguity that adds to it. That adds so much weight to that. But the creature design all throughout is just perfect. Just absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Think a bit of the animation of the toad or the frog that was under the tree.
Yeah.
A bit ropey, but
yeah.
Do you know what? I don't give a fuck. It got its point across. It worked so well. And yeah, sometimes these sort of stories fall foul with me because, it's the quest for the key, and you've got to find the yellow box, and you've got to open the yellow box and get this thing. But once you got the key from the toad, it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
It really didn't matter for me.
Yeah.
The fawn, always shot with moonlight on him.
Yeah.
Just creepy as fuck, but he's got such a majestic way and such beautiful mannerisms, and the way he speaks, and it's all nicey until it's not nice.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, fucking hell, he really means business. And I just thought he was such a great, wonderful character that you knew that there was something behind that. Is he doing these things for a reason which benefits Ophelia, or which benefit him and his kind?
Yeah.
And I couldn't work that out, whether this was... I need this key to open this box and do this and do that. And then the blood from the child would open the gates of hell. Yeah. I didn't really work. I couldn't work out exactly what his
angle was.
Yeah, his end game was going to be. But with his creature design, fucking hell, man, that is it's so beautiful because it is the thing of fairy tales, and it's like a Walt Disney on acid.
Yeah,
but it's like a grown-up fairy tale, one that you can watch again and again, and you will pull little bits more from it. The Pale Man, fucking hell, man, that is brilliant.
yeah,
That is creepy as fuck. That is proper Slender Man and all these other little things we've thrown together and heard throughout the years.
yeah.
And he just sits there quietly, and you're like, don't fucking eat the grape. Honestly, what?
Yeah.
Don't fucking eat the grape.
Yeah.
And you've got little fairies just telling her, don't eat the grape. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Obviously in Spanish, but you know.
Yeah.
But the creepy movements of that, it's so, because it's in full light as well. You've got nothing missing from there. You have absorbed that whole creature in your head. It's not really a monster, but you know, when you see Alien, then once you've seen Alien, you've seen them all.
Yes.
And you've lost so much more. With this, the way he sat there, you've got so much there. The way he breaks away from the table. So, okay, he's been there a long time. He's been there a fucking long time, man. And it's just superb. There's you mentioned about symbolism as well.
Yeah.
There's like the big table that they're having their meal at, where Vidal is angrily shrugging off the story about his father. And yet you have the Pale Man as well at the big table.
Yeah.
And Vidal at the position where the Pale Man is. And he's, you know, it does break it down to, is this just in her head?
Yeah.
Is the Pale Man really Vidal in her head, and she's just putting a skin onto it?
Yeah.
It's just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it's actually, the more you think about things like that, I mean, I hadn't made that connection. I don't know if anyone else had, but no, that's really cool. He is effectively the Pale Man.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's what
the child
I
eater
got from it. Yeah,
because that's the other thing, is when she looks around the halls, you can see all those murals with it basically eating children and stabbing people and Also, I tell you what's really interesting. Well, it's interesting to me is the guy who plays the faun is also the guy who plays the Pale Man. Yeah,
he's also the guy who plays one of the creatures in the Hellboy movies.
Yeah, he plays
well.
Abe Sapien, Doug Jones. He plays Abe Sapien, although Abe's voice is played by David Hyde Pierce from Frasier. So
only in the first Hellboy. Doug Jones does his own voice in the second one.
Yeah, good point.
Apparently.
Yes, well made. Yeah, so I mean, the whole thing with the banquet, that is very true. The symbolism there is because he's sitting there, the Vidal's sitting there with all that food and all those people around the table, and then saying to them, "Oh, you can only have the ration books, one ration book each, and then on your way." And it's like, and he's sitting there with get food for everyone,
Actually, she's the resistance, because they're not allowed to touch any food whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then Vidal comes after them. So you could actually look at it like that, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, because that's one of the things that kicks Vidal off into sort of going on a bit of a hunt for them, because he sees all the supplies going away, and the warehouse had been the storeroom has been broken into, and the food had been taken. So then he goes on the hunt for the resistance in sort of double time personally, when he does the whole thing and going behind the tree and saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter, it's only death," kind of thing.
Yeah, almost leading the attack, but not quite.
Yeah,
not quite.
Yeah, just holding back just enough.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, then there are two fairies that die when she takes the grape, and there are two people that die when the resistance takes the supplies, because there's the doctor
Yep.
And then there's Mercedes' brother.
Yeah, stuttery guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
With Mercedes being the third. Ah, there you go. Of course, because the third fairy is the one that believed in her all along. It's the same with Mercedes.
Oh,
Who
interesting.
believed in her all along.
Audience, if you are now listening with your tinfoil at one side, please unroll to a full 2 feet in length, roll around your head and twig at the top.
It's like an onion. It's like an onion. It's got many layers. Many layers.
It makes you cry at the end.
Exactly, yeah.
That is very true. So do you think that something like that, do you think that actually starts to imply that actually none of it's real? Now that we're seeing more of a connection.
And she's just brutally murdered towards the end.
Yeah. Because the other thing is also things like the that root. The what was it called again? It's something
The mandrake root.
Mandrake, that's it.
Yeah.
So the mandrake, the death of the mandrake is obviously the start of the miscarriage.
Yep.
And is that actually something that's going on in her head, or is it something that that she's using to kind of sort it out in her own mind because she can't believe that her brother's going to hurt, her brother to be is going to hurt her mum.
Well, this is where it kind of gets a bit sketchy because the mandrake root is handled by someone else apart from her. Whereas the other things are intangible, this is actually tangible. They actually think he pulls it up out from under the bed and throws it in the fire. So
yeah, but the stress of that actually happening, the stress of that happening is what triggers.
Yeah, but the mother doesn't know about the mandrake root under the bed. So how does she know to? She doesn't. No, the girl puts it under the bed, and she doesn't know about that.
No,
because she's in pain, so she doesn't see her do it. So therefore, that implies there is maybe some kind of magic at work. Because as soon as she does that, the mother calms down.
However, the mother is also, as we've already worked out, she was getting better because she was rested. And then what happens is when Vidal comes in, looks under the bed, sees the mandrake, pulls it out, and he's holding on to it. The mum's jumped out of bed and gone, "Stop, what are you doing?" And he goes, "It's this." And then mum gets really stressed because it's like, well, what the fuck is that? And that stress is what triggers the whole thing. And she throws it on the fire at the same time. So it's almost a coincidence that the mandrake goes on the fire and all this stuff kicks off, and in her head, I can't remember the girl's name, Ophelia. In Ophelia's head, she's equating the two events as being connected.
Well, once that's happened, then she runs to the bathroom, looks at the book, and then she sees the blood, doesn't she?
Yeah, and it's also the fact is you see the mandrake writhing and crying and screaming and all that sort of stuff, but no one else sees that. So is that now saying that that's just her way of basically dealing with what is essentially she tries to do something magic, obviously doesn't, obviously it works by coincidence, then the stress of discovering it under the bed causes the miscarriage, and so therefore she's projecting that onto the mandrake that's burning in the fire.
But then the other two people that were there aren't actually looking in that direction anyway, because the guy's gone off and the mum's on the bed not looking at the fire. Yeah. So if they were looking at it and not seeing it, and she was,
but it was crying out, so surely you would hear something going wee wee from the fireplace.
But wasn't
not necessarily though? Not necessarily. What's common in fairy stories? It's only kids who can see the magic things anyway.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, I don't really want to. I don't really want to disprove. I don't really want to disprove that the fairy stuff is real. I mean, I don't. I think that it's actually a better story for it actually all to be real. But I mean, the fact that
I think it's one of the clever things Del Toro does is he could play that card. That it's a common one in children's fiction. The grown-ups can't see the magical things. but he doesn't play that in this movie. So we have this ambiguity to play with.
Yeah.
Also, if you throw like a green bush or something like that on a bonfire, it whizzes and pops and squeals anyway.
All right, nature boy. Just because you're outside of the big smoke and you're surrounded by at least 2 trees, don't high road the rest
now
of
on
us.
BBC One, it's Country File with Elton McManus.
I'm joined today by Bear Grylls.
We're going to go
Bear,
down to.
what's your real name? It's Tarquin, isn't it? No one calls their son after some kind of rustic steak, you twat.
And there's the left turn we were all waiting for.
I survived completely on the wilderness, just me, my own resources, and this 30-person camera crew who weren't giving me crisps and quavers and passing me fags every time the camera was off. No, sir. Fuck
I
off.
drink my wee!
I am the Mushroom King. I only kill what I eat.
I survived drinking the water in discarded crisp packets I found in the bush, honest.
Yeah. It's a little known fact that underneath this bush there is an actual small shop run by badgers that sells me quavers. Honestly,
It would
Now,
be
if you're in the
funny.
wilderness and you can find some chalk, you can draw yourself a door, and then, if you're quick, you can get into the pale man's habitat and help yourself to some grapes.
With the chalk. Sorry, with the
here
chalk.
we go. Yeah, go on.
The fawn passes Ophelia the chalk,
Mm.
but we know the chalk is real because Vidal finds the chalk.
And also, Mercedes sees the door drawn on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's where the chalk came from that is real. Is the stumbling point, isn't it? Because if it was just in her head, then really she wouldn't have had that interaction with the wall or with Vidal actually finding the chalk.
And also, Vidal destroys the chalk. And then nature grows the chalk. Sorry, no. Vidal destroys the chalk. And then she's given another stick of chalk later on by the fawn who says, I forgive you.
Don't fucking lose this one.
Yeah, exactly. This chalk don't grow on trees, you know. I have to go fucking down the stationers and everything to get this. Do you know how much chalk it is these days?
Also, she only completes one task.
No, she completes all of them.
Yeah,
No, she doesn't.
She does.
She does. She gets the key from the toad.
Yeah, one.
She gets the knife from the pale man's lair
Yep.
in the choose the door scenario.
Okay, yeah, number 2. Yeah.
And the third task is the spilling of the blood.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's actually the that's the last test, isn't it? That
Oh,
to be worthy, she has to refuse the fawn's offer to harm an innocent.
And speaking of one last thing, tying it back to Vidal, how does Mercedes get the supplies to the Resistance? She gets what off of Vidal?
Key.
Right. What does Ophelia get off the
hang on.
toad?
Yeah.
What does Ophelia get off the toad? A key.
Mercedes always has a hidden knife.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Which she gets basically off of Vidal.
Oh, fucking hell. I'm going to buy this on Blu-ray now. Fuck it. I bought this on DVD, and it had a tiny little scratch at the very end.
Mm.
You know when it all goes gold and Ophelia's like standing up, and you're like, oh, this is such a wonderful... Oh, fuck, it's skipping. Fuck!
Another thing as well, Ophelia runs away with the baby and refuses to give it to Vidal.
Mm.
And she literally sacrifices her own life to try and stop him from taking the baby.
And which is, funny enough, exactly what she does with the fawn. When the fawn,
Exactly.
Yeah. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner.
It's parallels, it's mirrors.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that comes back to the whole thing of, like, a fairy tale is a way of basically a parable for children to understand the world around them.
Mm.
It's just a way of kind of working in is it similes? Oh, I can never remember. I always pick the wrong bloody word. That to basically
metaphors.
Metaphors. That's the fucking word. It's So it's a metaphor for essentially what is going on around her.
Mm.
So who's the fawn in this story?
The Doctor. No.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I've got no suggestions. I'm just.
I'm actually. Is there an analogue for the fawn?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wouldn't Mercedes be the fawn?
Well, I suppose so because
she'd be the closest fit, I think. Yeah,
because she is basically encouraging Ophelia into these actions.
Yeah. And just as the fawn can take her to the king and the queen, Mercedes, would take her to the safety with the gorillas.
Yeah, that's very true. There you go.
This is so fucking good.
Yeah.
So good.
See, and that's the thing, so okay then, so let's just go around the table. Do you actually think it went off to live in the fairyland, Elton?
No, she's brown bread.
Oh. Right, okay.
Or I can't think. Oh no, I don't even know Spanish. Shit, I was going to say pan, but no.
Is it La Morte or something like that?
Muerte, isn't it?
Yeah.
So okay, so you think she's just dead. What about you, Jim?
Well, I think she's dead, but in fairyland.
Okay. Darren?
I'm not going to be cynical. I'm going to say, she left a earthly vessel and went back to being the princess.
Yeah, because I would say that as well. Simply because, I could easily be cynical about this. But I'm trying desperately not to. I hope you all appreciate that out there in listener land. I could so easily be the usual grumpy Mr. Metcalf and be saying, nah, they're all fucking dead and it's all just a fever dream in her brain. But I would say that I think the whole point of you're going to be in fairyland, you've got to be away from being a human. That means you can't be mortal, and I think that's another thing. They mention that mortality is kind of one of the curses of being a human, and I think she breaks away at the last minute. I think she gets away with it. I think she escapes.
I think the evidence, if you want some evidence that it is all actually real and this is a tale of two worlds, as it were, is the very end, that the tree begins to flower again because she killed the toad that was poisoning it.
That's very true. But then you could also say that the toad that was killed was poisoning the forest with explosions and general warfare, and he's dead. If you want to try that, you can go both ways. But I there's an awful lot in this to sort of dwell and we talk over. It's funny. I had a Zarish on Facebook chat talking to me about it. And she said, what do you do when you got so many things in your head and you want to deal with them? And, because you want to talk about this. And I said, well, usually what I do is usually get some like-minded fellows and go down the pub and talk about it until we all fall over. So I don't know if we're going to get feedback from the pub or not. But
probably.
But, I think there's a lot in this that you could dissect either way. And I think that's one of its masterstrokes. Because sometimes, as you say, Jim, ambiguity is one of those things where it can either be used to just sort of give you a definitive answer, but allow you a little bit of wiggle room to pick your own ending, or you can you can have something that genuinely, is different and leads you down the garden path with every thought, and every idea and every way of considering it. I think that's one of the masterstrokes of this movie, is that it's so visually rich, so in-depth, so well constructed that you just look at things and you can do things like look at the pale man, look at the frog, and say that they're all analogues for Vidal. Or you can say, this is just something that she's dealing with in her head, or it really is happening. It's lovely. It's lovely. I like the idea that you can project onto it whatever you particularly want to take with you.
Mm.
Well, it's kind of that's the real thing of like fairy tales is the kind of we've got very watered down, sanitized versions that it's da 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 da, and this is what you take away from it, children, at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas the original sort of fairy tales were much more kind of they were like this. They were laden with sort of themes and symbolism, but it's kind of that's the point. You know. They provoke your imagination. You go away and think about it. You digest them. You know what I mean? You take for them what you will. It wasn't just plot A to B to C, da-da, and this is what it all means. Go home.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think this is, there's a lot of things being touted as, oh, it's like a modern-day fairy tale. And a lot of it kind of, no, it's not. No. Whereas this? It's like, no, this is bang on. This is... Yeah. This is very much true to its sources, and unlike a lot of modern day fairy tales, which means just giving a unicorn an iPhone, this really sort of feels like a fairing tale that's set in the 20th century.
I would like to actually see that fairy tale, unicorn with an iPhone. I think...
Maybe in the next Deadpool movie, possibly.
Unicorn with an iPhone? Could that be Tylenol and codeine?
Hey, nice. Yeah. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, do Harmontown. You'll find out. Early episode of Grid Proops. But there you go. Right, I mean, we got quite a bit of feedback. So before we get on to that, has anyone got any sort of final thoughts to wrap it up, or anything you really want to discuss about this? Because we can do that and then we can get to the feedback, but I just didn't want to cut you off. I mean, because obviously, Elton, I mean, this is your first time watching this.
Can I rate the 4 films that you've shown me?
No, I'll be very interested actually. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, out of the 4, because we've had this, we've had LA Confidential, Pulp Fiction, and Das Boot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Long time ago as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just in September that was.
Yeah. Okay, right. At the bottom, in at number 4, is LA Confidential.
Yeah.
Just not for me. No. Really isn't.
Okay.
Bit disappointed with that one. Number 3, I would go with Pulp Fiction. Because I really, really enjoyed it, but I don't think it's as good as Das Boot or this.
Being outgunned, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's great fun. I will watch it again, but it was on TV, and it wasn't one of them films that, I've caught it halfway through, I'll watch it to the end. It's not one of them films. You really need to be in the mood to sit down and watch Pulp Fiction and really enjoy it from start to finish.
Yeah.
I'm really torn between whether this or Das Boot is at the top. I'm going to put them on a par. They are fucking works of art. They really are. I'm so glad I've seen these 2 films now. So glad. And I will be revisiting both of these again in the future.
Cool.
I'll be buying DVD, not the DVD. I'll be buying the Blu-rays of these to keep with me. Oh, it's just fucking superb. So thank you very much.
Hey, it's job done. Look at that. Look at that. We've succeeded. So maybe we should do this again. Maybe next September.
I just reckon throw one at me like a hand grenade every now and again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe off air in the green room, we'll have a little chat of films that you have and haven't seen that we think you should have, and then we'll hit you with a few more in the future.
Oh yeah. Not The Godfather though. We're not doing The Godfather.
The Godfather. I mean, I think when we do extra long trilogy season.
Oh shit! A brick.
Yeah. Well, maybe that Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I don't know. I can't think of any extra long trilogies.
Coming away from the trilogies bit though, more of a modern film. Did you watch Fury Road?
Fury Road.
Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh, you did, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
we can leave that one out then. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry, you can't get that. He's just looking for an excuse to go and buy it. Boo, don't frighten me.
I've already got it.
I'd like to see the black and white version of it, though.
Oh, was it chrome, black and chrome?
Yeah.
Or shiny and chrome, whatever the version is. Cool. I mean, yeah, maybe we'll have a little think about it. Could be good. Cool. Well, I'm glad we our thing has been a partial success, if nothing else. Yeah. I'm guessing you haven't seen next week's film either, but that's
what. Remind me, what is that next week?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, excellent.
No, I haven't seen that. It's just a continuation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. I think until further notice. Anyway, rightio. Well, like I say, I think we're bound to get loads and loads of interesting stuff to discuss on the feedback. So what we'll do is we'll stop our discussion here. We'll get into the feedback, and let's see where that takes us. Right, roll the jingle.
Now put your hands up, here online, doing real fine, we're doing our podcast thing. It's called Blackdog, it's not like a joke, is anyone there listening? What do you think of our show? Let us know by MP3 or email, just get it to us, it ain't no fuss, we'll even read your Twitter rings. Cause if you like us or you hate us, send some feedback in. Got a geek report to raise and put some feedback in. If you think my voice is sexy, put some feedback in. Man, we really like it if you put some feedback in.
Right, okay, so it's feedback time, and as is tradition now, Darren has basically fucked off. So, there you go. He's got early doors, so that's why he has to do it. So, unfortunately, he will not be doing any feedback, which would have been really handy, but he's not, because he's doing other things.
Join the gorillas in the forest.
Exactly, gorillas in the mist. Diane Fossey.
He's probably halfway on putting his old man pants on at the moment.
Yeah.
Slipping into his...
Stop it. No good will come out of any of that conversation that follows.
Slipping into his PJs, putting his wee willy winky hat on, and carrying a candle to bed.
Now I just have a vision of Darren with a bum flap hanging out, like some sort of Dickensian kind of old man.
Albert Steptoe.
Yeah. Oh God. That's actually probably remarkably close to the truth, as he takes his wig off and goes back to bed. just gives it one last dustbuster hoover before he settles down to sleep.
Puts his teeth in a glass of water next to his bed.
Warm milk. Which I found out from a kid's TV show is what you do if your tooth gets knocked out. Put it in warm milk.
Warm milk?
Yeah, or just milk. Anyway, never mind. That's some dental saving tips there. Let's move on back to the feedback, shall we? The first piece of feedback comes from a new feedbacker, Chris Oster, who I've seen on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/the Blackdog Podcast. And Chris writes, "Hi, Blackdog Podcast. I hope this isn't too late to include as feedback. It's my first and probably my only feedback that I've been motivated to send. Life being mostly my job working in film TV makes it incredibly hard to actually schedule, sit and watch films in a timely way. Never mind feedback. Totally with you there, man. Been there, done that, understand it completely." So anyway, he goes, they continue, I go weeks without hearing the podcast, and then spend days off binge listing in many cases, and adding to my watch list based on the films that you're going to review. It's getting disgustingly long. Still, Pans Labyrinth deserves a little bit more effort on my part, because though, because it is a film that is around about 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of way, got me into my career working in movies, and ranks as one of my favourites. Pan's Labyrinth is actually the 4th Del Toro film I watched. I watched Kronos when I was in high school, and as it played one afternoon as a highlights of the Sundance Film Festival on the Artsy Movie Channel. As a moody teenager, I was pretty much prepared to watch anything weird with vampires in, although I didn't love it. Some of the storytelling, even back then, struck me to the point that I remember who Del Toro was. Years later, I saw Blade 2 and Hellboy, and as fate would have it, a friend's obsession with Hellboy would lead her career and ultimately mine. By the time I saw Pan's Labyrinth, I was already very familiar with Del Toro's work. A friend of mine went through a rather impressive obsession with Hellboy franchise, and I enjoy the films well enough, but I can trace back some elements of stylistic appreciation that have haunted my own artistic developments, but didn't love them in the way that she did. Although a few scenes in Hellboy 2, the Tooth Fairies and the Tree Elemental and the general elf society, struck me in a way that Tolkien adaptations didn't. I think the difference is Tolkien's stories are essentially war stories with elves and trolls, while Del Toro manages to tap into something more familiar. He's telling, in many cases, more universal stories that just happen to be set during wartime, and that is probably the best way I can explain it. It isn't good or bad, it's just a point that resonates with me and the stories that I enjoy. And then there's the matter of the fairies. Fucking fairies. They will get me every time. Although there was a mix of World War II that mixed into the narrative, it wasn't enough to kill my interest in Pan's Labyrinth. In some ways, although I can't think of a war movie that I enjoy, I almost think the firm grounding in the horrors of reality and history were what made the movie. I'm still not sure how to reconcile the dichotomy of somehow Del Toro manages it. In some ways, perhaps because it's real events, the propaganda wrapped bread rations, the fascism, the brutal cruelty of a sociopath gave it an authenticity and a grounding that a lot of genre and fantasy movies lack. I think on some level there's more a difficulty in separating yourself from fantasy aspects when you're presented with realistic and semi-historical fascism than just being told orcs are evil. I think it's fair to say that I've watched Pan's Labyrinth more times than I can count, and each time I rewatch it I'm struck by the realisation that this movie is what fairies should look like. I don't know why I think Disney princesses, Ferngully aesthetic, or even Lord of the Rings elves are less authentic, but in my heart of hearts, this is how I think it should be. Fairies, when they're done well, should be a little bit morally ambiguous, a little bit frightening, and hauntingly beautiful in a very organic, otherworldly way. It's one of those things I always really enjoy about Sen to Chihiro. Spirited Away. Although they had a bit more of an Asian aesthetic and world trappings, they feel the same and they felt different than how a lot of them are portrayed. And I say all of this as a reformed 7-year-old girl who had quite the love for unicorns and fairy stories with illustrations that included purple flowered hats and petal dresses. I have no explanation, it just feels right. Anyway, one of the things beside the rich visuals that I get hung up on is that this is a movie where I first really noticed the way that Del Toro uses colour to create worlds and atmosphere. Crimson Peak, Pacific Rim and The Strain are probably the most recent of his films where I can really pick up on the colour cues. I don't know if it's because I work in film or not, but I have a bad habit of putting on movies and doing something else instead of watching them, because that's how busy my life is. It takes a really visually powerful movie to keep my attention, and often find many directors have a slick scene or two, often a cool creature or special visual effect, to get a wow, grab attention, and their bag of tricks is done. I find Del Toro's film can keep the visual interest momentum and keep things interesting. On the topic of slick visuals and cool creatures, Doug Jones, the actor, who plays the Faun and the Pale Man, is always amazing and an underrated actor. In many ways, the special effects, the creature design, the makeup get the bulk of the attention, but I can, at this point, pick out when it's him and when it's CG simply by his hand movements. I would suggest to everyone that if you get a chance, go back and watch the hands in this film, and then go and watch Abe Sapien in Hellboy and the ghosts in Crimson Peak, and you'll start to understand just how amazing an actor he is, even when he's covered in foam latex and silicone. To be honest, for the first feedback, I really wish I had something profound and interesting to say besides my fangirl gushing of this film. I know I will think of something cool afterwards, after I send this feedback, and kick myself for missing out on something profound I forgot to mention. There are too many facets to this film that make it a delight and a piece of genius. The moralities and crossroads of each character which they face, the obsession with father figures, and feminism of the female characters and their relationships with each other are all so beautifully crafted, subtle, and so rare, and so on. So before it turns into an epic length first and probably only feedback, I just wanted to say thanks for putting this up for this week's film. And it's been a while since I watched it, and it's always a pleasure returning to it. Cheers, Chris Oster. P.S. If anyone can name any other fairy movies that are in this vein of this one, I would greatly appreciate a message on feedback. A message on Facebook. I feel that there needs to be more good fairy movies in a world of mediocre horror, birdemics, and sparkly vampire movies. PPS. For anyone who hates Twilight, someone else once pointed out to me that if you pretend the Cullens are actually very confused fairies and not vampires at all, Twilight makes a lot more sense. Well, actually, it's actually a better series. PPPS. Seriously though, are there any good fairy movies out there? All I can think of is Spirited Away and Legend, and after that I draw a blank. Well, thank you very much for that, Chris, and sorry for misunderstanding your name. And saying sir at the beginning or something like that, because I'm clearly an idiot. So there you go. Good feedback.
Well, we don't read the feedback before we get it. That's one of our rules, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. I kind of got about halfway down and I'm thinking, oh, crap. What have I done? First feedback, and I've shot myself in the foot. There you go. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that, Chris. Good feedback. Yeah. I mean, Del Toro's control of colour is amazing, as Jim even brought that up, didn't you, in your feedback?
Yes,
your bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
The control of that, the way that he controls the mood and the scene setting, and even though these scenes are quite clearly visually quite different, disparate from each other, when you get the sort of live action sort of war stuff, it goes into sort of greys and greens and that kind of stuff. Then you get to the fairy areas and it's all bathed in moonlight and blues and all the and then when you get to the pale man, it's all visually rich golds and reds and everything, and it's opulence and sort of the colour almost tells you all you need to know about the pale man, because it's just overindulgence and gluttony and greed and just because the whole just palette of that scene is just there telling you, even before you see this horrible sort of desiccated husk that clearly used to be a fat person, because you've got all these kind of folds of skin hanging from its bones, that gluttony and everything has been its corruption. It's amazing.
It still has this unending greed it can never satisfy.
Yeah, it can never sate its lust for just overindulgence. And food no longer... You can almost see that food no longer matters to it. And that's why it's kind of... There's all that opulent food on the table, and it's all skin's just hanging off of it, and it's like... Oh, wow. That's the thing I love about Del Toro stuff. All of his monsters and all of his creatures tell a story without having to tell a story, without having to be explicitly explained.
Yeah, they have history, don't they?
Mm.
Yes.
It's masterworks of design. Brilliant stuff. So, fairies, realistically done fairies. I can't think of anything.
The other one, Hellboy 2.
With the tooth fairies.
Well, that is all about the fairy kingdoms waging war, isn't it? That's the main.
Yeah.
There's a film I really enjoyed a few years ago that was loosely based on the Cottingley Fairies case, but went to a different place called Photographing Fairies.
Oh,
yeah. A very, very strange, kind of eerie little film.
Oh, yeah, the one with the old sort of... I'm going to sound like a complete Divwit now. The one with the girls, the old photos, the classic ones with the
yes. There's actually 2 films based on that are quite good. There's one called A Fairy's A True Story, which is kind of a straight retelling of the case with all posh British actors, which I think is rather nicely done. But there's Photographing Fairies, which is inspired by that, and is about a photographer trying to get proof of the other side, and becomes obsessed with this fairy case, and that's quite interesting.
Well, remind me, I don't know if you've seen it, but because I read the book and I only saw the first episode, but did Jonathan Strange and Miss Norrell have a whole thing with fairies in the TV show?
There's a lot of fairy lore in that, yes, in the book, but I've got the TV show still recorded. I've not watched it yet.
Oh, right, fair enough.
I was away when it was on, and I banked it all up, and I've still not got. I thought I'll save that for winter now. Actually,
yeah,
because Christmas.
Because I was going to say, because I've read the book a couple of times, and I just suddenly think, there's the Goblin King, or Goblin Prince guy, the Elven King. I can't remember if he's Goblin or an elf or something like that. But there's him. There's the Winter King, isn't he? Is he Winter? Oh, fucking hell! I'm really shooting myself in the foot at the moment.
but that counts.
I suspect that might count. I don't know if there's anything in there to sate Chris's need for really well done fairy tales with real fairies.
The other one I point to the Jim Henson Storyteller series. That rather nicely adapted a lot of the original sort of folk tales that are the basis of our modern fairy tales, but kept all the monstrous and frightening elements. So the Disneyfication fairies, that's something that started in Victorian times, and fairies became these cutesy things, where folkloric fairies are actually, in the main, generally fucking horrible, and you really don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
The thing about don't eat anything of the pale man's food is a classic element in proper folk tales dealing with the fairy kingdom. If you go into the realm, so the fairies, in Old English called Elvenheim, or the Unseelie Court, if you're in Scotland. One of the rules was, if you wanted to get out alive, is you hadn't to eat any of their food or drink. Because if you did, you took on something of their kingdom, they would be forever have the hook into you. And also, you'd never, usually in the stories, if you did eat and drink anything, you would never get out. Or if you did, it would be hundreds of years later.
Nice. Okay. Well, hopefully there's something in there that's that Chris might enjoy. I hope so. And if you do, Chris, get in touch. You don't have to send in feedback for the films. You can sometimes just send in letters and just say, "Hey, I looked at this. It was good. Thanks."
Yeah, I'm interested in if anyone's got that as well. So if anyone does know any, put it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, definitely. Because the other thing is, it's kind of like one of those things. It's a bit like one of those kind of. I hate to use a reference like Alien again, but it's the case of once you've seen something done really well and you go looking for someone else to have made something similar, then you tend to find yourself disappointed. So, you see the monster like in The Thing or Alien or something like that, and you go, every alien monster movie, space movie should be like that. And then you see, it's a man in a blobby suit, or Star Trek wearing a Cornish pasty on his head or something, and you think, that's not really doing it for me. And the thing with Del Toro's stuff is, especially if you get like the art of Hellboy or the art of Pacific Rim, and you look at the sketches and the little doodles and everything that he did, they have them reproduced inside the art books, and some of the stuff that he does in there, you just think, no one else is doing anything like that, because no one else is him making those kind of crazy designs. I suppose it reminds me of some of the book covers of Clive Barker's original sort of anthology books of Blood, where Barker would sort of doodle the sketch the creatures himself, and they would be the front covers. But I don't know if, I just think it's such a unique vision and a way of designing things and a way of portraying things. I don't think you're going to find anything that really scratches that itch.
Yeah.
But if you do, brilliant. Let us know. But anyway, thank you very much for that again, Chris. Great feedback. And yeah, keep listening, even if you don't send feedback in, it's fine, and I'm sure you'll binge listen again. And, I can only apologise for binge listening because, frankly, 6 or 7 hours of us is probably more than I'd want to have in my head, and I live here.
You don't listen to us idiots talk all day, crying out loud.
No, blimey. Like I say, I talk to myself and I'm bored. So anyway, that was Chris. So thank you very much for that, Chris. And time to move on. So Jim, who do you have first?
Opening up the medical/scientific wing of the Blackdog. With some feedback from the fiendish Dr. Will.
And what does the fiendish Dr. Will have to say?
All right. Subject line. That's definitely not Mr. Tumnus.
Yep.
Good evening, Blackdog. What a treat it was to have Pan's Labyrinth on the docket. A wonderful film that meets all my expectations. Since becoming a devotee of Neil Gaiman in my early teens, I have grown to love fairy tales. Not the sanitized children's bedtime stories that most people think of, but the old-fashioned tales where people are hacked to pieces and eaten, where you're not guaranteed a happy ending, where Sleeping Beauty is raped by the prince, gives birth to twins, and is only woken after they suck the poison needle looking for her breasts.
Well,
it's true. That's in the original Grimm version.
Yeah. Night, kids.
These stories and the way they're retold in different forms are absolutely fascinating to me. Pan's Labyrinth is a true fairy tale, complete with so many of the traditional tropes: the evil step-parent, the real parent who gradually loses interest in the child, the fairy godmother who is looking out for the child's well-being, the hidden princess, and so on. And, if that's not enough, you have the stories within the story as well. Like all great stories, there are so many layers to this, and it is filled with allegory and metaphor. But you don't need to look at every level to appreciate it. You could just as easily interpret it as taking place in her mind to escape reality, as being a true magical adventure where she really is a fairy princess. It works just as well when you take it at face value as when you consider it a semi-religious metaphor for the soul, which departs the immortal realm, lives in a mortal body, and then returns to the immortal realm to be reunited with other souls. To cap it all, the story was told in such a fabulous way. The acting was wonderful. You immediately knew who the characters were the moment you met them. As in fairy tales, the good was clearly good, the evil was clearly evil, and the fairies themselves are always questionable. The costumes, makeup and visuals were top-notch, the sound perfect, and I cannot really find fault in any of it. As a closing entry to the Educating Elton season, I think this was an excellent choice, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, fiendish Dr. Will.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Good feedback. Yeah, well, I think we know Elton's view on it now, don't we, sir?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
That's cool. Yeah, I've completely forgot about the idea of the fairy godmother.
Yes. The thing is, there's so much in this film. I think you can talk for a couple of hours and you still feel like, damn, we've not really scratched the surface of what's kind of in there.
Exactly. It would literally go round and round in circles, and oh man, you just yeah. I won't. I was getting close to sort of repeating myself again, but no, great feedback, sir. Yeah, really, really cool. I was just going to try and think about what he said there and see if I could address any points. I mean, yeah, the Neil Gaiman comparison is an interesting one, and I'm wondering whether or not things like American Gods, which is being adapted for TV now, or Sandman or something like that might be worth a look. Going back to Chris's thing about fairies and sort of modern day fairy tales. Might be worth a look, but we haven't seen anything of them. We only know that they're on their way, so
right.
Could be interesting. Though I have to say, I didn't really get on with American Gods as a book, but that's just me. But yeah, I always I preferred I preferred Good Omens personally, but that's just me. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a first big novel syndrome. I think with it, I much prefer kind of a Coraline and the Graveyard The Graveyard Book,
Yeah.
and Good Omens as well. But,
Mm.
no, they're not. He's bad per se, but it's not. It might. I think it probably work better as a TV series, but we'll have to see. It's been in development a long time, which makes me nervous.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe something for a Blackdog news podcast another time. But okay, well, thank you very much for that, Dr. Will. I know we've got Zarish coming up in the MP3, so we'll hear from you again later on, either in the background or chipping in. I don't know. We'll have to find out. And so now it's on to you, Elton. Who do we have next?
Okay, I have got here Gareth Lloyd. And he says, "Hello, chaps. Now, I've started watching this film about 3 or 4 times over the last few years, and every time something's come up and I've never really made it till the end, until now. And I'm a bit sorry I did. Now, it's a well-made film and a lovely score, and I can totally understand why people like it, but it was such a downer for me. The dark fairy tale stuff and the creatures are great, but the real world stuff is so harsh and brutal that the film is just too dark and depressing for me and the mix of real and unreal is just too jarring to make the film flow as a whole. I would have loved to have seen more dark Jim Henson vibe and a more the great, albeit brief fantasy visuals that it did have. So now I'm not fawning over this one, but I'm off to watch some Rick and Morty to cheer myself up. Cheers, guys. Gareth."
Oh, wow. That's, well, there you go. Thank you very much for that, Gareth. Good feedback, sir. Not fawning over that one. I couldn't interrupt the jingle with a yeah. Just assume that I pressed the button, blew everyone's ears out. A couple of people went, "Oh, not that one again," and moved on.
Screw them losers.
Actually, Jim Henson reminded me. Jim Henson. What about Dark Crystal? That's got some dark fantasy elements.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Sorry, I keep coming back to Chris's feedback. Sorry, I was just anyway, just as being reminded. Yeah, the harsh reality. I don't think it stumbles the film at all. But I understand what you're saying. But I don't know. I don't think going off to watch Rick and Morty is going to cheer you up much either when you get to the Cronenberg planet. But hey-ho, you may be in a situation that's even more existential angst than what you end up with in this film. Yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Gareth. Good feedback, sir. Good to hear from you again. And do send in more for any other films. We'll look forward to hearing from you. Anyone got anything to add? I mean, it is harsh and brutal, but I think that has to be that way.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be the same story if it wasn't. It's like we said before, it's more of a grown-up sort of fairy tale. It's not the whimsical Walt Disney stuff that you do get, where you know what you're going to get towards the end of it. It's all a happy ending and kisses and people waking up. It's not that. It's grim and dark, but you're still led to your own choice as to how you really want to finish your film in the head.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Okay,
it's a film about the contrast as well, and you need the dark and the light. I think.
Yeah. It wouldn't be nearly as effective if the real world was kind of okay, and you could sort of say, well, all she's got to do is put up and shut up, and she'd be fine. I mean, go back to sort of even the Disney-fied fairy tales, and you look at something like, Cinderella, who's essentially thrown in a basement and made to be a servant for 3 people who have essentially kowtowed their parent, one of the parents, It's just, none of these things are really particularly bright and cheerful. It's just Disney's kind of smoothed the edges off. But, anyway, thank you very much again, Gareth. And now it's time to move on to our next bit of feedback. And the next bit of feedback is from Dr. Scum, Fred Lubnow. And he writes, "Hello, Blackdog crew. Hope all's well. Very excited that this week's movie pick was Guillermo Del Toro's classic Pan's Labyrinth. This film was one of the few that I have seen where it lived up to all the hype it received. Can't find anything to complain about or criticise. This is a near-perfect film for me, so I will make only a few observations. Firstly, the dual storyline. It was well crafted, and another example of Del Toro's interest and obsession with how humans can act like the monsters, and the monsters can exhibit humanity. Captain Vidal in Pan's Labyrinth certainly falls into the former category. He's a real prick and a bastard. Last week, someone said Captain Dudley Smith in LA Confidential was a good film villain. Well, Captain Vidal in Pan's Labyrinth makes Dudley Smith look like Winnie the Pooh. The actress who plays Ophelia, Ivana Banquero, is absolutely charming, and you find yourself rooting for her to pass each of the tasks set before her. In fact, all of the actors do a fantastic job. The creatures are amazing and a testament to Del Toro's imagination as a storyteller and a filmmaker. Del Toro's old fawn, and how can you not be frightened by a child-eating pale man? The last thing I will point out is that for Ophelia to receive immortality in the fairy kingdom, she is told she must kill her baby brother. She does not kill her baby brother and thus passes the test, which seems a bit cruel, but based on old stories of mythology, fairies and associated creatures, comes off as having a cruel form of morality that seems alien to humans. Jim can correct me on this if I am wrong. For passing the test, she becomes the Princess Moana and lives, in inverted commas, happily ever after in the fairy kingdom with her parents. In contrast, for his inhuman acts, Captain Vidal loses all forms of immortality for humans. His son will not be recognised, and his and Vidal will be Vidal will be stricken from the records of life. Start again. In contrast, for all his inhuman acts, Captain Vidal loses all forms of immortality for humans. His son will not be recognised, and Vidal will be stricken from the record of life in a historical capacity. No one will ever know he existed. Just found it interesting how the death of each of the two main characters results in a completely different afterlife outcome based on the actions in life. So thank you, Blackdog, for another great movie. This film is one of my favourites, and I didn't watch it often, so it continues to pack a punch upon each viewing. Fred, Dr. Scum, Lubnow. Thank you very much for that, Fred, and I'm sorry I cocked up the reading. I seem to be on a roll with that kind of thing. Again, another parallel. That, Ophelia, she dies, and she gains immortality. Vidal dies, and basically gets castigated from history, gets cut out and thrown away and completely forgotten, and loses any immortality, even in death. He loses anything, even martyrdom, which is something that his father has, because his father has immortality because he's living through the legend of the Watch.
Yes.
So the symbolism of how you act and how you'll be remembered is an interesting one as well by your actions.
God, yeah.
More Baco fall for that hat there, Elton?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just about the watch as well. During the film, he said there was a load of bollocks about the watch being smashed when his father died.
Yeah.
Did he say that? Or
yes,
he said something about it. He said he was ridiculous that happened.
My father,
you could clearly see that watch was broken.
Yeah, he said my father never had a watch. It was ridiculous. He basically wanted to dismiss his father's memory. He wanted to. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying about him as a villain. He has a backstory that you kind of get glimpses at that kind of humanizes him to a degree, but also adds an extra layer of, his father acted in a way that that Vidal didn't, and so therefore lives on through the watch, through the legend of that watch and the broken watch and how it keeps going, and then it stopped on the day he died, and
then Vidal fixed the watch as well, didn't he?
And keeps it going, keeps it alive, and then when it finally stops is when he dies, and he's kind of almost, this is my legend now, and he does the whole thing of now you will be, I will be remembered and tell my son and all this sort of thing, and he'd be like, no, you won't, and it's like, bang, that gets him more than being cut, sliced, stabbed, or anything. That again, he'll be forgotten, and his father's memory will continue to live on beyond him.
Yeah,
which is again a really powerful sort of parallel story with Ophelia's, that by her actions, she gets to live on, whereas by his actions, he doesn't. And yeah, another great little thing that could probably be sat in a pub and talked about for about 2 hours. Oh dear. Sometimes maybe that's it. Maybe we need to have a whole sit in the pub and discuss it series. Blackdog in the pub, a tinfoil hat production. Anyway, thank you very much again for that, Fred. I'm glad you liked it and glad we gave you an excuse to watch it. So let's move on. And Jim, who do you have next?
Next, we have Doreen Kelly.
Doreen Kelly, Keldor the Mighty, who, if she's listening to this on the day it comes out, we can all do this. Go on. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday.
Skype's causing us problems. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Is this thing on?
Happy birthday, dear
Keldor. Happy birthday to you and many more. Oh, yeah. Shut up, Al. You cool. There's no need to be like that. It's her birthday. Drunken, sozzled old bird. Not Doreen. Mr. Owl. Happy birthday, Doreen. That's all we're going to say. There you go. Hope you have a lovely day, despite us ruining it already with this terrible rendition of Happy Birthday. Anyway, what does Doreen have to say about the film?
Its subject line: Whispers from a cerebral folkloric labyrinth. Dear Blackdog Podcast, it is I, Keldor. Doreen Kelly has been mesmerised by the film Pan's Labyrinth. I went in search of that half-joker-mouthed captain to make him pay, but he must be in an unreachable circle of hell. However, I did find a tiny dark green notebook. Mr. Owl, if that contact of yours made a mess of the following, so help me. Owl. Apparently, the translation of what I found reads, Dear Diary, we arrived today. I saw a big dragonfly. I pretended it was a fairy, until it really was a fairy. After I showed it my book. The fairy took me to eat a fawn with big curly ram's horns. Because of the moon birthmark on my shoulder, he called me Princess Monona of the Underworld. The swirly head must be wrong. My father was a tailor. The tree grasshopper-legged fawn gave me a book, gave me a blank book of crossroads. This morning in the bathroom, the pages came to life. Now it looks like a fancy, colourful church book. Got my pretty green dress from Mama for the dinner party, but got bored and went exploring. Tried to keep it clean by leaving dress outside tree trunk, where I met Giant Toad. That sicked up the golden key. Dress got muddy anyhow. Mama sent me to bed without supper. When I woke up, the book was all red. Then Mama was shouting and bleeding. Now I need to sleep in a new scary bed in my own room. Mercedes was nice. She hugged me and sang. Fawns are bad, she said. When I was under Mama's bed with wriggling mandrake root in the bowl of milk, I heard the captain tell the doctor to save the baby rather than Mama. I hate the captain. I used the chalk from the fawn to make a door. Found naked bald guy at table with eyes on plate. But then the eyes were in his hands. Hand-eye guy chased me. I was scared when my door closed. I drew another one, though. The fawn was angry with me for eating 2 of the hand guy's grapes. Hello again, diary. Baby Prince is here. Mama is not. I hate the captain because he found and told Mama about mandrake root. Mama got mad and told me magic isn't real and the world is cruel. She was right. I bet the captain kept the doctor away too. I have to go. With my magic chalk, I'll rescue baby brother and hope I can make the most of the fawn's second chance. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for the podcast. Keldor. P.S. I hope Guilermo Del Toro has access to more of Ophelia's story and that the end was true.
Well, there you go. We don't know if the end was true. Thank you very much for that, Keldor, by the way. I think the jury is out. Isn't it? Thank you very much for that interesting feedback. Hope you have enough chalk to escape. And don't worry. It'll be fine. I'm sure nothing bad will happen, he said.
Much.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Doreen. Yeah, I mean, I hope. I don't know if I want to see more of Ophelia's story. I mean, what do you think?
I think the story's sort of complete in itself.
Yeah.
But if anyone could do a good sequel of Ophelia's Adventures in the Magic Kingdom, it would be Del Toro.
Well, that is true. That is very true. Yeah, I think there's a I think if anyone could do it, it would be him. But as Darren pointed out before he left, you know, the whole point of this story is it's nicely wrapped up from start to finish. So I really wouldn't want to see any more, because I don't think, even if it was done right, I don't think it would add anything to this story. It probably.
I think you'd lose something from this film, because you've got the ambiguity of, is it true, is it not true? And having that answered, you lose a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's very true. It would literally, but it would, one way or the other, it would explain it, or at least break some of that ambiguity, which is almost that whole problem with things like Blade Runner. You know, you're going to get a sequel to that, so are we going to get told whether or not Deckard's a replicant or not? And, you know, will that make things worse or better? So, yeah, I don't know. I think we'd have to. I think I'd rather it didn't. I'd rather we didn't, but I don't think he's planning on it. But anyway, thank you very much for that, Keldor, and happy birthday, ma'am. Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for your feedback. So, we must move on. So, Elton, who do you have next, sir?
I've got Jack Woodgate, and he's got a bit of
Woodgate.
Spanish at the start of this, so apologies to all our Spanish listeners.
Do we have Spanish listeners?
Probably not after this.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, by the time I'd finished with the wiki, I think that pretty much did it. But, yeah. Go on in.
Okay, he says, Buenas noches, caballeros del Piero Negro. I don't know what that means. I do apologise.
Hello, people of the Black Dog. Oh, boys of the Black Dog?
Is it?
I think so, yes.
Gentlemen of the Black Dog? I would run it through Google Translate, but the chances are Google Translate will make a, terrible hash of it.
No, don't do that.
No.
Anyway,
Go for it.
when I first heard of Pan's Labyrinth, I thought I was going to be a bit of a rip-off of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, or at least a cash-in of the legacy of Harry Potter. But I hadn't realised it was made by Guillermo Del Toro. I can't pronounce his...
Guillermo Del Toro. Yeah.
Fucking hell, it's a fucking lesson all over again, isn't it? This was going to be no mere fantasy film. I tend to find in these films I've seen of his that Del Toro has two distinct voices. One, his English language films, Blade 2, Mimic, Pacific Rim, and Hellboy, are filmed with a spectacle, gun-ho, heroes and monsters. The other, the Spanish language films, such as Cronus, The Devil's Backbone, and Pan's Labyrinth, have a spectacle and monsters, but are quiet and more poignant, and not meaning to sound like a pretentious twat. I have to say I prefer the latter. Pan's Labyrinth is my favourite of Guillermo Del Toro's films, in dark, fantastic elements, complementing the cruel reality. It's heartbreaking, melancholic, and often brutal in its violence, but also has wonder, innocence, and hope. I look forward to hearing Elton's views on it. Till next time, Jack.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jack. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. There are two Guillermo del Toros. There is your Pacific Rim and Hellboy types, and then there's this Devil's Backbone, Crimson Peak, Kronos. Yeah, and
are they worth watching?
I think I'm probably going to get hung for this, but I often find Devil's Backbone a more straightforward story, but it's kind of like Pan's Labyrinth 0.5 in terms of the tale it's telling and the way it's telling it and the setting. It's very easy to look at the two and go, well, they're very closely connected. I personally find Devil's Backbone, I prefer it, but then I know that's because I saw that first.
Is it like Jewel and then Jaws?
Yeah, actually, that's a good comparison.
That's very good, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. You know, in terms of, you could watch Devil's Backbone and enjoy it as a film, but if you saw it as a stepstone to basically making Pan's Labyrinth, and Pan's Labyrinth is kind of like, if Devil's Backbone is the cake components, Pan's Labyrinth is the finalist of Great British Bake Off. You know, it's kind of like it's a much more well constructed whole, and the results are much more layered and much more rich and interesting. Whereas Devil's Backbone is more of a sort of straightforward ghost story that just happens to be set during the Spanish Civil War.
Okay.
But you know, in some ways, you know, Devil's Backbone is a much more linear tale as well, a much more less ambiguous. Let's put it that way. So you might not actually enjoy it now that you've seen Pan's Labyrinth. You might be jonesing for more of that kind of subtext and nuance and all the other stuff and the symbolism. But sometimes you just want to watch a ghost story. And if you watch Devil's Backbone and you've seen Pan's Labyrinth, then those two come together in Crimson Peak. Because Crimson Peak is kind of a very interesting story. Lots of interesting subtext and sort of, you know, overall gothic romance, but it's also got this kind of supernatural element running through it, which kind of feels like Pan's Labyrinth, but it actually owes more to Devil's Backbone. So it's kind of like you could almost sort of look at a family tree of these three and sort of go, well, this leads to that and that leads to this, and you could see them all interconnected. And in a sort of unofficial trilogy.
Right. Cool.
I don't know how you'd react to Crimson Peak, because it is a bit more gothic romance, which just happens to have murder, death, and ghosts. And
yeah, it doesn't sound like my thing.
Well, maybe we'll cover it one year, because I think it's definitely worth a look. It certainly is beautiful to look at, and if you like Pan's Labyrinth for visuals, this is kind of that again, but with a bigger budget. So, Anyway, well, thank you very much for that, Jack. Good feedback, sir, as always. And so it's the last bit of written feedback for me, is Mr. Matt Jones. Unfortunately, I can't do the return after Matt because A, Darren's not here to follow up, and secondly, when I put one of these episodes on YouTube, basically that was the only one which got copyright striked with, hey, guess what, we're going to do you if you don't take this bloody episode down. All the others, Bonnie Tyler,
really?
Yeah, Holding Out for a Hero, Zip Zap Rap, they all got copyright striked, but that's fine, because the people who are doing the copyright striking are saying, well, we're happy to let you have it, but you cannot monetize these episodes. And it's like, oh, that's fine, I don't care, it's on YouTube. But the one with Return After Mac, and we actually put it on there, because it was more than 30 seconds, it was like, no, get rid of it. It's like, oh, all right. So, fuck you, Matt.
Bastards.
Not Matt, but, you know, the people who did that song. Anyway, so, yes, that's by the by. By the way, guess what? We've got a YouTube page. Ta-da.
Cat out the bag there.
Yeah, kind of out of the bag. Right, Matt, Mark, Mitty, Matt.
Who have you got?
Matt Jones, or Matt Danger Jones. And he writes, "Good evening, gents, and the fantastical feathered fiend, Mr. Owl."
Where is he? Wake up.
I tell you, you should stop feeding him. You should stop giving him the Scotch bottle before we start recording. Give it to him afterwards.
I have to keep him quiet somehow.
Well,
We didn't have the scotch. Imagine the mayhem.
Fucking hell, yeah, true. The last time we had to abandon recording. Right, okay, so let's carry on. Matt continues. It's been a few years since I watched Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, a film widely regarded as his masterpiece. I first saw it in the late 2000s, having really enjoyed his thematically similar Devil's Backbone. There you go. I originally expected it to be a film mostly set within a dark fantasy world, so I was surprised to discover that it was set 5 years after the Spanish Civil War, during Franco's regime, and largely takes place in reality, with fantasy sequences appearing sporadically, as seen through the eyes of young Ophelia, played by the impressive Ivana Banquero. These scenes are a wonderful contrast to the horrors of the real world, although Ophelia discovers that the labyrinth of the title contains horrors of its own. Del Toro is in great form here, showing us the brutalness of the era and through the actions of the despicable Captain Vidal, a regimented man obsessed with his timekeeping symbolised by his father's broken watch that he carries at all times. Sergio Lopez is brilliant in the role, conveying a sense of menace and abuse of power, and the violence that he inflicts upon the suspected rebels is really quite shocking. Oh God, that bit with the bloody bottle with the two rabbit poachers.
Oh God, yes.
God,
Idiots.
oh, yeah, lovely bit of CG prosthetics there as the nose disappears in, and then you realise actually the guy isn't dead; he's still alive with like half his face caved in. It's like, oh God. Anyway, on the fantastical side of things, Doug Jones is excellent as the faun encountered by Ophelia, not actually Pan, according to Del Toro. The film's title is translated from Spanish is The Labyrinth of the Faun. He is created almost entirely by practical effects, and combined with Jones's performance speaking in a foreign language he had to learn for the role, he is most effective. Jones's other role in the film, the sinister Pale Man, appears in the film's most memorable and famous scene, and is just as scary as the real-life threats encountered by the protagonist, and the CGI that is in the film is used to great effect. The smaller fairy creatures working well with the practical work of Jones's great performance. Del Toro's creates an impressive atmosphere throughout and leaves it open to interpretation whether the underworld actually exists or it's all in Ophelia's head, right up until the end with a memorable death scene. Captain Vidal's final scene, where he's confronted by the remaining rebels and killed, is also hugely satisfying too. Pan's Labyrinth is a fantastic film, deserving of its reputation, and, along with The Devil's Backbone, is my favourite Del Toro film. Although I enjoyed it just about everything he's done. To be fair, I hope Elton enjoyed this educational season, and I'm sure there'll be another one next year. Cheers, guys, Matt. Well, thank you very much for that, Matt. Yeah, I'm sure there will be another one. Just a little point about the CG. Some things you may not have noticed, such as the Pale Man's legs.
Real skinny, weren't they?
They were super skinny. They were puppet legs on the front of Doug Jones. He had like a green sort of suit that was masking him out. So there was that. And the background was being digitally re-added. And similarly, the legs of the faun were sort of a combo of CG and practical. Just a little. Just pick up.
Because they got the dog leg faun type shape.
But they were really quite... It was clearly not just him wearing a pair of really funky sort of stilts. He really clearly had to... Either he was leaning at 90 degrees and having like some wires holding him up which were painted out, or his legs were digitally enhanced, shall we say. So there you go. But anyway, thank you very much for that, Matt. I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, as I said, Devil's Backbone, I think it's a great film, and we will be covering that in a future episode, I'm sure. So that's it for me. So Jim, who do you have as your last bit of written feedback?
Next, we have Mr. John Campion.
What does John have to say?
He writes, "Hello, Lee, Darren, Jim, Elton, and Senor Owl."
Yeah, you can hear the Spanish inflection.
Definitely. Owl is only a few letters away from Ole, after all.
Very good. Very good. Love it. Good move.
I couldn't pass up the chance to feedback on this, possibly Del Toro's most complete film to date. All his visual invention and ideas of a fantasy world and creatures, dark and beautiful, are present, and work in contrast to the capricious brutality of the real world. The Spanish Civil War hangs over it like it did in The Devil's Backbone, and I think we're encouraged to see the fairy world as a place of escape. The appeal of a world without lies or pain is evident, but it can be as brutal as the real world, the innocent fairies eaten by the creature at the feast. In both worlds the good suffer and die, though at least the fairy world has a hope of redemption and rebirth. That ambivalence is present throughout, and even the film's real monster, Captain Vidal, being more than he seems, evidently tortured by his own demons, the scene where he strikes the razor across the throat of his own reflection, the effort he goes to save his son. Although his comeuppance is satisfying, he will never know your name. Vidal is no moustache-twirling, two-dimensional character. Even the partisans are shown finishing off the fallen Falangista soldiers in the same way Vidal's men have earlier, suggesting that things might not be so different were they in charge. There is so much more to say about this wonderful film, but as one of you will have to read this out, I'll stop here. I hope Elton recognised its genius. Bip, bip, John.
Thank you very much for that, John. And yes, he did indeed, didn't you, sir? Interesting point about the partisans doing the double tap to all the fallen soldiers. Yeah, that's a good point. That actually, it doesn't matter who was going to win. It's kind of portrayed as basically it's just a war that is just begetting more violence.
It's one thing that I had noticed, but didn't really find it important. I'd noticed that they both did it, and it was like a little, okay, right, note to self, they both did that, but it wasn't important until it was mentioned now.
Yeah. But it is that point, that, it doesn't matter who's in charge. I mean, they make the allusions to the fact that if Vidal dies, it doesn't really matter because someone else will take his place. It's almost goes double for the rebels, that even if they win, things won't change.
No, it'd just be them ruling, wouldn't it?
Yeah, in the same sort of fairly militaristic, blunt fashion. So, yeah, really interesting point there, actually. And, which makes, Ophelia's need to escape even more desperate because she's got, even if the war was to change course dramatically, it wouldn't get any better. So, interesting. Well, thank you very much for that, John. Good feedback, sir. Yes, and as I said, I think everyone recognises its genius. So let's move on to our last bit of written feedback. Who is that then, Elton?
We have Gareth the Proton Thomas.
The positive Proton Gareth. And what does he have to say about Pan's Labyrinth?
Okay, he says, Dear gents of the Blackdog, I trust you're all well. Again, this weekend was spent catching up on some movies due to the shitty weather. So in the list was Force Awakens 3D, never mind, Sully, and Pan's Labyrinth. Hey, it's my opinion.
No, it's his opinion.
That's what. Anyway, he continues. I remember when this came out of the cinema, I'd read really good reviews, sat down to see it, and then the subtitles came up. And I thought, oh, shit. But I loved it. So as soon as it came out on Blu-ray, I bought it and rewatched it. Was most welcome. For me, this film is beautiful. Its fantasy characters are unusual and dark, and the music score fits well. El Capitan is a real bastard, and he gives the audience a character to hate. It's actually quite a brutal film in places, with the rebels' face being smashed in with the bottle by the captain, and the Chelsea smile scene. The film reminds me of the Babadook in that there are maybe meanings behind the plot. Ophelia possibly suffering with the grief from losing her father and having to move, and maybe it's all in her head. Maybe there's no fawn, and she just misbehaves to rebel against her mum and the captain. This, of course, ends up with Ophelia dying, being at peace, reunited with her mum and dad in the magical kingdom. A real dark, hidden meaning with the plot that isn't always recognised. Also, the film had a strong female character in Mercedes, who is part of the resistance and ends up killing El Capitan. I do think, though, that the subtitles distract from the beauty of this film, and as you were having to read, I found that I missed stuff for the first time round. So, Elton, watch it again. Don't worry, I will. This film is in my top 10 and always recommended to friends who haven't seen it. I think it's Del Toro's best. Cheers, chaps. Gareth the Proton Thomas. My mum always told me fawns are evil and shouldn't be trusted. Mr. Tumnus, fuck off.
Yeah, go on, fuck off, Mr. Tumnus. Go on, take your fucking wardrobe with you. Go on, away on your hooves. Go on, off we go. So, thank you very much for that, Gareth. Good feedback, sir. Yes, I think we covered most of that, haven't we, really? But go on.
Well, he mentioned about Ophelia dying and being reunited with her mum and dad in the magical kingdom. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's true. But in some ways, though, you didn't... Well, because you didn't get to see her father at the beginning... You kind of get you don't really get a sense of who he is, apart from the fact that he was the tailor that I think El Capitan basically killed.
Yeah.
Or at least was in some way responsible for his death.
Didn't the mother say that he'd killed him?
I don't know, because he was. It was kind of. I think it was kind of implied, but they never actually said it, because that's why he gets. That's why Vidal gets really cross at the dinner table, saying, "Oh, she thinks it's an interesting story."
Right.
I think but interesting. Yeah. It's interesting to note that Ophelia is probably already in fantasy land from the start. Rather than just when she puts the eye in the statue or any of that stuff, it's she's already, pardon the phrasing, but away with the fairies. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So good feedback, sir. Thank you very much for that, Gareth. Glad you liked it, sir. And yeah, don't worry, Elton loved it. Everyone, just chill out. We got this.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, that's it for the written feedback. And, yeah, we shall now move on to the MP3. And the first of our MP3 feedbacks is from Greg Bones Madden down on the USS Blackdog. Let's hear what he has to say about Pan's Labyrinth.
Greetings, Darren, Lee, Jim, Elton, and the notorious Mr. Owl. This is Greg Bones Madden sending in my feedback for Pan's Labyrinth. When this movie first came out, I remember watching it. Unfortunately, I don't remember much about it. I think it was because in the time period it came out, I just was not that interested in subtitled movies, and I didn't give it the attention it deserved. On rewatching it, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was an excellent movie. There were a few flaws in it, which I'll get to in a little bit, but I enjoyed the movie. I really liked the fairy folk in it. I'm not sure how accurate they are with such beings, but I felt that they were pretty well on the line, and I'm sure Mr. Moon will be able to sort that folklore of fairies out and see how much of that was accurate. As far as the show, it probably deserved to be in Man Blood Month, I think. It really teared me up a little bit. The dust in the house must have been up, or found myself tearing up a little bit. As far as the characters go, the commander I truly despised. He was a good villain. Made you really enjoy when he finally met his end. I only wished it would have been a more long, drawn-out affair than a single shot. But I felt that he deserved everything he got, which is a mark of a good villain. As far as the part that really teared me up, it was the part where she was talking to her unborn brother in her mommy's belly, and that really got to me. I'm not sure why all of a sudden that teared me up, but it really was a touching scene. And it felt just like something a little girl would say to their own unborn sibling. And as far as the rest of the movie goes, I felt that it was a really good, solid movie. The flaws I found in it, I really wish they wouldn't have shown the first scene where they showed her laying in a pool of blood. It was just a quick scene. I think it would have been better without that scene altogether. It kind of gave away the ending a little bit, and I felt that it was totally unnecessary and kind of ruined the experience. As far as the other flaw that bothered me, and these are very minor flaws, it was the part that they knew they were having a son. In the 1940s, I don't believe there was any way to know which, if you were having a boy or a girl when you were pregnant. This was probably an oversight on the director, or they could have explained it as wishful thinking, but I felt that was a very minor flaw that was overlooked, that they didn't have that type of technology in that time period. I thought at the end, I think they should have leaned one way or other, because it was kind of in between a fairy world and heaven. Of course, I'm not a religious person, so to me, I look at it as a fairy world, but I could see it both ways. And to me, I liked the statement at the end about how she sacrificed herself instead of her brother. But I think that it could have been a little better done as far as where she was. It looked like it would more of a heaven scene than a fairy world. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, it's a little short feedback this week for me. It's been a rough week for me, and a lot of people around here getting ready to start a new job, so time's been at a premium for me. I've sent our wonderful science officer, Gary Spock Madden, off on his sabbatical on Vulcan, for he's still catatonic after the elections. You know how those Vulcans go. But I will wrap it up here from the medical bays of the USS Blackdog, and I wish you all a great week to come, and keep up the good work, and I will see you later. Cheers.
Cheers to you, sir. And yes, hope things are improved for you soon. Stressful week. I think we've all been there. Some more than others. Hope it improves. And if you can return the science officer to formal active duty at some point, that'll be great. Because, a ship without a science officer just ends up sort of just driving around in circles going, what's that thing? What's that thing? What about that? What's this blippy bit?
See Red Dwarf for details.
Yeah, exactly. But I hope that that Gary's fine as well. It wasn't an ideal result, and I think everyone's as shocked as you guys. But anyway, thanks again for the feedback. As far as the Vidal getting to grips with it being a boy, I don't know. I mean, I always got the sense that he was doing that sort of Henry Tudor thing. It better be a bloody boy kind of affair.
Now that was my thing, because doesn't the doctor actually say?
How do you know?
How do you know it's going to be a boy? And it's kind of, of course it will be. It's my son, sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
His attitude of it was his I suppose his own fantasy story that, of course, he'll have a son, and he's so used to being unquestioned about everything else.
Yeah. It's almost a shame that, sadly, unfortunately, Elton's had to leave. It is now 12:20, and he's got an early start as well. So it's just me and Jim now. This is Blackdog after midnight. Blackdog after hours.
Hello to all you truckers out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hello to Antonio Bay. Anyway, if you get that joke, 5 points to Gryffindor. It's interesting because he's living his own fantasy in that respect, isn't he? That things will pan out the way he wants them to. and things will happen because he decrees that that's how it's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was a case of having the technology to know. It was just this kind of, like I say, wasn't it Henry VIII who was desperate for a son and heir?
That's right. Yes. It was the undoing of several of his wives who failed to produce one for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Frog Stomper was wandering around in the background there, I was like, bring her up to the mic, give us the historical accuracy, give us some validation. But anyway, yeah. So that's kind of how I saw that bit. The heaven and hell.
Well, the thing is, I think it's a fairy story, and it's kind of that last scene for me. It always reminds me of kind of the big closing scene you always have in pretty much most traditional British pantomimes, which are normally versions of the classic fairy stories. Generally it's Jack and the Beanstalk, it's Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Aladdin as well. But at the end, you always have this big scene, normally where the heroes are married or crowned king and queen, and all's been restored. But you have this big scene, like you have all the cast all in the court regalia, and that's kind of the note it struck for me. I mean, I suppose it's one of the Spain is a Catholic country, and there is a strong, I suppose, that imagery to it that it is.
His God.
The court looks quite cathedral-esque,
yeah,
and with the gold lighting, it does kind of look quite heavenly. But I think it is also that little girl's fantasy of becoming the princess and having that sort of big happily ever after scene.
Yeah. I mean, just going on that. I mean, it is, as you rightly say, everyone gets their just rewards and takes a bow at the end, sort of thing. I mean, bloody hell, you even get that in Star Wars. For goodness' sake.
Yes, well, it is. That's true, yeah.
So it is, I mean, I don't think it's a heaven thing as much as it is a fantasy reward scene. Yeah. And in fact, you get it at the end of Lord of the Rings as well, with everyone on Gondor kneeling before the hobbits. Doing the same deal again. So
I mean, it's something actually I think you can find it in Shakespeare as well. You have that kind of
that's true. Everyone has that sort of take a bow moment at the very end. Hell, go for it. Sorry, I was going to carry on.
In a weird way, you also sort of get it as well in sort of crime dramas as well, of your classic murder mysteries where they gather everyone together in the room for the reveal of the murderer when they get carted off to prison. Yeah,
that's very true. Anyway, thank you very much for the feedback, Greg. Like I say, I hope things improve for you, sir. I hope your new job works out well. And I hope Gary, wherever he may be, is feeling in good health and good spirits by the time we hear from him next. Do your best, Doctor. Do your best, Bones.
I understand a Harry Mudd of Paris does an interesting smelling salt called Pong Fa that might be useful for bringing him round.
Nice. Nice Trek reference there. I'm liking that. Extra kudos to you. By this point, Elton would be rolling his eyes. So this is all good. He's gone. Quick. Let's throw all the papers up in the air and jump on the tables. Anyway, right. Yeah, this is where everyone finds out who the real chaos makers are in this podcast. Anyway. Right. Well, again, thank you very much for that, Greg. And, we'll speak to you soon, no doubt. So, our next piece of feedback is from Duck Cartwright and Lou. They've sent in some MP3 feedback to tell us what they thought of Pan's Labyrinth. So let's hear it.
Hola! Hello! This is our feedback for Pan's Labyrinth, which we just finished watching.
Yay!
First time for me.
And for me.
I thought it was really good.
I didn't think it was as good, but it was all right.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Shot really well, acted really well. Ophelia was excellent, I thought.
I thought she was great, actually.
Real emotion.
For a young actor,
yep.
I thought she was spot on, actually.
I was properly emotionally engaged with her. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
All of the main characters played really well, I thought. The captain was an absolute shit.
Yes.
Didn't quite know where he was going to go.
No. You kind of didn't know if he was, like, murderous or, like, rapey or
maybe might have even
Do you
softened at the end a little bit, but no.
You just didn't know. He kept he was very on form.
Yeah, he was a shit from start to finish in the end, though, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Brilliant. Special effects were great.
I thought they weren't bad, actually. I thought a couple of areas could have worked on a little bit.
Shall we list them?
Let's list.
Let's list. The Toad.
Baby Jabba.
You like that?
I like.
You like Baby Jabba the Hutt.
Baby Jabba.
Fawn.
Yeah,
He was-
yeah.
Very good. We liked him.
We liked him.
The pale handyman with the eyes. The big tall one.
I personally didn't like him as much.
I thought he was
But
fantastic.
the way that they done him was good.
I thought he was a great character. Just
I thought the
haunting
fawn was.
overall.
I thought the fawn was better. There was more to the fawn.
He had a bit more scenery to chew, though, didn't he? He had a lot more stuff to do.
Yeah. You had the cricket slash fairy.
The Transformer. Yeah, Transformer. I thought that was brilliant. Just throw that into a film. Some of the practical stuff was pretty good for the chopping off the leg, which you didn't see much. You didn't see much of that. That left a lot to the imagination. That sent a shiver up my spine.
Yeah.
I was a bit queasy at that.
The other bit was the I didn't take a liking to the captain when Mercedes
Jokered him.
basically, and like obviously when he's sewing it back up,
Yeah.
it didn't look very realistic to me.
It looked very clean.
Too clean.
Very clean for a fresh cut.
Yeah, but it was too clean. If it was a bit more bloody, it don't have to be overly bloody, but a bit more bloody,
Swollen.
maybe a bit swollen,
Yeah.
because if you cut yourself, you're going to get a swollen bit wherever it is.
Look at the stutterer they tortured. I mean, he was bloodied everywhere.
And he was absolutely swollen.
Yeah, his eye was swollen. His hand was all smashed up. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Kid with a nose getting smashed in. That was brutal.
Yeah.
Dear oh
See
dear.
his nose gone. But yeah, I just thought that particular scene, because it was up close and personal, it could have been a bit better executed, I think.
I thought the fact it was quite visceral anyway, because you're right up close and you're watching him push the needle through. That was a little bit sort of jarring, but
Yeah, you did go, ooh,
a
ooh,
little bit like,
ooh,
ooh, stingy.
but then you're like, there'd be blood.
There definitely
Be
be
trickles
blood.
and everything like that. You know.
So, we like the special effects. I like the story. There were some moving scenes.
No, there was a special effect that I did not like.
Oh, sorry. There was the special effect you were not impressed
Special
with.
effects I did not like
Go on then.
when they were like doing the explosions in the woods.
You said they were a bit photoshoppy.
They were just awful.
You weren't a big fan of those, were you?
No. Considering, don't get me wrong, I did get a little bit bored because of the war bit, but when you're watching it and you see that and you see the explosion, you think, what the fuck was that? It's like you've done all this time and everything else with the fantasy side of things and making sure that's top notch.
Yeah.
Yet when it comes to a couple of explosions in the distance,
Yeah.
you could have at least made them
I don't
a
think they were
bit
that.
more realistic-ish.
I didn't think they were that bad. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. Yeah. So the moving scenes that I thought were quite moving
Yep. Go on.
were ruined, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Mercedes hugging poor Ophelia. She's all upset 'cause her mum's ill. Giving her a cuddle. Do you know any lullabies? No, I don't know any of the words. That's okay. Hum it to me. Just as she's about to hum it, what do we get from Louise? John Cena's wrestling thing. Fantastic. So the bit at the end, Ophelia dying at the end, Mercedes crying over her, just starts humming the theme, just about to hum it again. What do I get from Lou? Totally ruined the emotions for
You
me.
was waiting for it though.
To be fair, I was laughing my arse off. But yeah, so all in all, I thought it was a great film. I'd watch it again, probably not this week, but I'll watch it again soon.
I didn't think it was that bad, but I wouldn't watch it as soon as you.
No.
I'd watch it in probably 6 months to a year.
Yeah, I'd give it another go quite soon. But anyway, looking forward to next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Speak to you soon.
guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that's going to ruin things, isn't it? In fairness, that's going to
Just a
ruin
bit.
any emotional moment, frankly. Well, there you go. Thank you very much for that, guys. Good feedback. Yeah, actually, we didn't address that with Greg either, how dusty the room became. And these guys brought it up as well. I mean, did you get emotional with it, Jim? I was just wondering.
I think it's quite a powerful ending. It's quite moving. The room wasn't truly dusty.
No, I was going to say it wasn't terribly.
But I saw this time I watched it. I saw it more in the upbeat light.
Yeah.
Though I think the second time I watched it, though, it was really like I found it a really sad ending.
Yeah.
Interestingly, so that time it was definitely dusty in the room.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much for that, guys. Good feedback. Yeah, the special effects were a bit ropey on the explosions. I'll be honest with you. It's because you could see that it was a clip art, because the explosion size wasn't right for the scale of the scene around it, and there was blue fringing. But then again, I might be back to the same thing Chris was on about at the beginning in the first feedback. You know, it's kind of like, if you do this stuff and you see this stuff more often, you're probably sitting there going, "Oh, actually, that's not quite right." But if you brought it up yourselves, you say again, "Hold on, that looks a bit shonky. That's a bit stuck on." Then
I did notice the explosions, but I did notice the frog's tongue.
Yeah.
Being a bit ropey, but
Yeah.
not in a muscular fashion.
Yeah, not exactly. Not in a terribly muscular fashion. It was a bit sort of just. It was just 1 minute it was there, and next minute it wasn't. And it was But anyway, I'm glad you liked it overall, and that's the main thing. So that's cool. So thank you very much for that, guys. And it's now time to move on, because time is moving on, as time is wont to do. And next piece of feedback is from Zaresh, and I believe she was doing a separate feedback from Will, although Will may feature in the background. I don't know. We haven't listened. It may even feature Harriet. We don't know. We haven't listened. But let's just hear what she, and maybe others, thought about Pan's Labyrinth.
Hi there. I had a lovely chat with Lee earlier about feedback, and he said I could do it so long as I did it in 5 minutes. So I am going to try and talk as fast as possible. I hope you can understand it. If it goes over 5 minutes, Lee, please speed it up, like those things at the end of mortgage adverts. As I'm sure everyone has said, Pan's Labyrinth is so beautiful and visually arresting. It's not often that I come across a film that's so satisfying in that regard, although it's fair to say that applies to a lot of Del Toro's work, not just this one. But the level of creativity in Hellboy 2, Pan's Labyrinth, and Crimson Peak to a lesser extent is particularly gratifying. As with all good fairy tales, it's a simple story. Boy meets girl, boy marries girl, she has baby. One of the things I love about Del Toro is that, like Hitchcock, he likes to fuck with your assumptions and with cinematic conventions. So this isn't the how they met love story. It isn't the evil stepmother, it's an evil stepfather. There's a civil war on. The focus is the stepdaughter, not the actual daughter. The fairies tear at meat like hungry birds of prey. And the three fairy tale tasks involve fear, mild disappointment, near death, loss, and then finally, actually, death. Slightly more challenging than Cinderella having to find 6 mice and a pumpkin so that she can go out for the evening. And Del Toro also flips other conventions on their head. So the actor who plays Vidal usually plays charming romantic leads. The actress who plays Mercedes usually plays the femme fatale. And the actress who plays Ophelia's mother usually plays very strong, independent women. So he even flipped that. There are traditional fairy tale elements, though. There's the 3 tasks, the 3 doors to choose from, there's a golden key, magical knife, magical book, fairies. So it's all there with the elements. In fact, there's a key story in both plots, and a knife, and the dining table. So, yeah, there's parallels there as well. Distinctions, as usual, in Del Toro films, delineated by the colours used. Green, blue, grey for real knife, and red gold for the underworld. Although that first scene where Ophelia meets the faun, that's very blue-grey, but I guess that's a kind of linking. He does link between the two worlds. So The themes are too numerous to pick apart, and I'm sure everyone else has covered them in great detail, at least they hope they have. But I remember him saying in an interview that when he was 4, his mother took him to see Wuthering Heights, and that this grand, romantic, gothic drama really affected him. And I feel that there are echoes of that, probably more in other films of his than this one, so The Hellboys, Devil's Backbone, and a bit in Kronos. But the echoes of a lot of other things are in Pan's Labyrinth, and not just stories. So there's the concentration camp pile of shoes, there's Wizard of Oz, there's Rebecca, there's David Copperfield, Little Match Girl, Alice in Wonderland. There's so many others. What was the other thing? Oh, yes, and that the Blood Labyrinth, the actual pattern, had shown up in Hellboy when they're trying to resurrect Rasputin. That pattern is exactly the same as the Pan's Labyrinth pit labyrinth. I also liked finding a film that embraced and didn't flinch from feminine imagery and biology. That tree, the one with the which could be the fawn's horns, is also very uterine, and the miscarriage foreshadowed brilliantly in Ophelia's magic book. Although I did think that that genius bit was slightly undermined by the physical impossibility of laying in bed on your back and apparently miscarrying all the fetus's blood, and a few other people's blood apparently, down the front of your nightgown. Clearly gravity was very different under Franco. I like the parallels between The Pale Man and Vidal. I was highly amused to read that the bit where the Pale Man eats the fairies, Doug Jones had to buy open condoms full of fake blood, and then the phasmids were added digitally afterwards. And then I read that the phasmid drawings were taken from 2 stick insects christened Cheech and Chong, and I just thought, poke me with a fork, I'm done. So many layers of genius, so many layers really, just made me very, very happy. It's possible that Will and I are actually going to have to start a podcast just doing feedback for Blackdog, because we can never keep it to 5 minutes, and there's so much to talk about, especially with this gorgeous, stunning and wonderful film. Thank you very much. Good night. Your home is at risk of repossession if you do not keep up with repayments. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well done. There you go. Well done. I was saying just before I hit play on that, I was saying to Jim, I said Zarish could do it. If she could do it in 5 minutes, then it's cool. And actually, she did. There you go. Well done, Zarish.
And perfectly intelligible as well.
Yes, it was. In fact, the temptation to speed it up so it was unintelligible just to make a laugh out of it was kind of strong. And then I thought, no, actually that would just be wrong, because there was so much interesting in that feedback right there. I mean, the thing with the condom and Doug Jones, that's above and beyond the Call of Duty, when surely a straw in his hand would have done the job, wouldn't it? Surely?
You wouldn't get that rip the same way, you see, in the same sort of splash patterns.
No, that's true. Very true.
The thing is, condoms are a tried and tested part of a practical makeup effects man's kit. And there are a great many amusing stories about them in the effects world.
Yeah,
there's more than a few sort of best boys and gaffers and sort of apprentices who had the unenviable job of going to the local chemist and literally buying their entire stock of condoms for effects work and getting appalled looks from people.
Yeah, that's right. Those people over in the studio, they bought all the condoms. Must be like a den of debauchery over there. Yeah.
Are you going to use all of them, son?
Every single one. I won't even ask for a receipt. Yeah, I mean,
so on more lofty matters, think about the labyrinth pattern. I mean, the labyrinth pattern he uses is one that occurs in a great many places, many different cultures, and I mean, I'm sure everyone's familiar with stone circles and stuff. And
yeah.
What's less well known is an equally ancient tradition of cutting turf labyrinths.
Ah.
And they're a lost feature that were believed actually often occurred in ancient sites as well. They also, they crop up in medieval Christianity and all sorts of other places as well. And the idea is that, by literally walking the pattern on the ground is, like a form of prayer or meditation or a way of changing your consciousness of ways of yourself accessing the other world, as it were.
Sort of.
There's lots of interesting stuff about mazes and traditional maze patterns, and
why do I sense there's a Hypnagoria series in the offing?
There could well be. It's a fascinating thing of kind of, because often we're just left with the stony bits of various sacred sites, and there's often archaeologists have found these other more transient bits, and very interesting.
Yeah. And
Del Toro knows his stuff though quite clearly.
Yeah, he's a master of symbology, if nothing else. Yeah, I was going to say that I was thinking that labyrinth looked familiar, and it is. It's the thing when he's in Hellboy when they're walking.
Yes,
walking with the Russian zombie on his back. And they find Kronau. What's the Clockwork fucking Nazi assassin guy? Klaus. Oh no!
Name check failed.
Yeah, exactly. When it's too
Klemp or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's too late in the day for man looks up thing on internet.
If I put in Clockwork Nazi assassin, God knows what will turn up in the current climate.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, there'll probably be some sort of steampunk thing dedicated to Donald Trump. So
yeah, it's Cronin. Karl Rupert Cronin.
Cronin. There you go.
Cronin. Yes.
Yeah. So. Yeah, great feedback there, and don't worry, you were going perfectly well. It's all perfectly legible. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, the uterine symbolism of the tree. I kind of covered that a little earlier on. It's interesting that you're the only other person who brought up the connection, the parallel connection between the Pale Man and Vidal, which Elton picked up on and none of us did. So that's quite cool. See, there you go. Wow, it's stuff. It's layers within layers. And you know what? If you think you can carry on if you think you can talk about things like this for hours on end, then why don't you do a podcast? I'm not being snotty. I'm actually saying that that's how I started.
That's how I started.
Exactly. I was sitting there on the box room talking over poor old Jen and Marty all the time, and I thought, well, rather than ruin their podcast, I'll make my own. So, not that I don't want your feedback. That's quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. But just everyone's got to start somewhere, and if you've got stuff to discuss, not a bad idea. So, thank you very much for your feedback. Anyway, good stuff there. Lots to chew over. I just wish it wasn't, was it, 1:45 in the morning at the moment. And, well, hopefully we'll maybe return to some of these themes when we do Hellboy. I'm sure we could do Hellboy. We haven't done it yet. We should do Hellboy and Devil's Backbone as well.
Yes, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, they will be fun, yeah. Cool. So let's move on. Thank you again very much for that, Sarish, and well done on your timekeeping as well. It's great stuff. And now it's time to move on to our next piece of feedback, which is Michael Cornett, the belly stapler, Leopold von Gruppenhans, who is, much like a lot of people at the moment, going through a rather tough time with work and family issues. Which he's talking about on Facebook, and if you know him, then by all means you can send your sympathies his way. I wouldn't presume to sort of splurge it on this podcast and tell everyone what's going on, but I just hope everything resolves itself quickly and positively. I think that's safe to say.
Yes, indeed.
And best wishes to him and his family. But let's hear what Michael has to say about Pan's Labyrinth.
Good evening, Black Doggers. Good evening to Lee, Darren, Jim, and Elton. This is Michael Cornett, the belly stapler. It's after midnight here in Baltimore on a quiet Friday night. I just watched Pan's Labyrinth. Let me tell you a story. You guys are going to fucking hate me. I first saw this before it first came out at a preview screening in Washington, D.C., free preview screening, and somehow I managed to nab a pass for it. And there was Q&A after the show with Guillermo Del Toro. I got to shake the man's hand. Yes, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I know one of the big things, which I'm sure you guys have debated, I'm sure a lot of people have talked about, is this all in her head or was it real? Someone asked Del Toro that. He said, as far as he was concerned, it was real. He's a romantic. He wanted to feel that she had really gone down to join her real family in the magical kingdom. So I kind of watching it with that lens on is kind of interesting. But it really speaks a lot to what a lot of people fear is going to be the situation here in the U.S. I don't know how justified those fears are. Sometimes I think maybe we're overreacting, but yeah, we might not be, and that's scary. So there's a lot of that going on. A lot of that, just the horrors of war, the horrors of being under occupation, the horrors of having a psycho like the captain, in charge of things, and chanting those, this is the bread of this is the bread of Spain, and the Reds lie to you and all that kind of stuff. It's like bullshit, really fascinating. I also kept remembering a cabaret song from Berlin in the early days of the Nazi government that translated into English, I won't try to sing the German, says, let's see, truth is hard and tough as nails, that's why we need fairy tales. I'm all through with logical conclusions, why should I deny myself illusions? And that's really what this film is all about how we escape into fairy tales and our fantasies when life just gets too horrible. And that's really what we do. It's human. It really is. It's human. We check out. We go for that escapism. It's one way or another. But there's also a remark made about tyrants versus martyrs. And I think Del Toro said this, is that the tyrant, when he dies, his story is over. The martyr, when they die, their story begins. And I think that's something that's going on here as well. It was just such a moving film. I mean, when I first saw it, there was a lot of dust in the air. And there was a little dust in the air here because I've been cleaning but haven't vacuumed yet. But it's a really moving film for me. It means a lot to me in a lot of different ways. It's very reminiscent of Arthur Machen. I'm sure Jim gets that reference. But if he hasn't dropped that already. And, it just so mystical and it's perfect. It really is like the best goddamn thing that Del Toro has done. People gripe about the scene where she grabs the two grapes. I'm like, that's so fucking typical of fairy tales and myths. People do that sort of thing. So, but anyway, wonderful, wonderful film. I love it. It's part of my permanent collection. I have the 2-disc special edition, all that, which I got used from a Blockbuster that was closing down. Hey, if it wakes, it wakes. So, yep. This is Mike Cornett, the Belly Stapler, signing off. Love to you all. Mwah. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for that, Michael. Yes, we don't hate you for falling in with the man, Mr. Del Toro. I mean, I'm jealous. Yeah,
definitely jealous.
Absolutely. But hate you for it? Never. Yeah. Never, sir. Thank you very much for that feedback. Interesting feedback, I have to say. The whole thing about the song about the fairy tales and the fact that, people need to check out. I mean, yeah, I'm always reminded of, now this is going to make me sound super pretentious, a quote by G.K. Chesterton, who said, "Fairy tales do not tell children that dragons exist. Children already know dragons exist. Fairy tales tell children that dragons can be killed." And I think that's what is at the heart of this story as well, is that it is a case of escapism. It is a case of getting out and getting away, but also that finding your own path can defeat evil in the most bizarre of ways, perhaps, but it can be defeated, and there are ways to defeat it. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, situation in America and probably going by what is about to impact on us as well and the rest of the world, it is scary. But yeah, you know, we can't. We do want to check out. We do want to face, go into fantasy to escape from some of the rather terrible realities we're about to face. But in some ways, you look at these fantasies and say, what are they telling us? They're telling us that actually this stuff can be stopped. It can be defeated. You can rise up from the lowest points. And, no matter how bleak things are, there is a positive resolution if you're strong enough.
Well, that is a recurring message in fairy stories and fables, that it is the smallest, most unlikely person who has the biggest difference if they find their courage and follow their path.
Yep, from hobbits onwards, from hobbits upwards, yeah. But anyway, thank you very much for the feedback, sir. I mean, Arthur Macken and the great god Pan, sir, you got name checked in the feedback.
Well, yes. Well, Macken, interestingly, I mean, he was a Victorian writer, but he was quite active writing during the First World War, and he wrote a very interesting story called "From a Valley Out of the Earth," which draws parallels between the reports of atrocities from the First World War with reports of strange sightings of fairies of the most old and horrid nature who are seen committing horrible, barbarous rites. And he very deliberately writes it, and it's too long to go into here, but Macken also famously wrote a story set during the First World War, which famously got mistakenly considered to be real news, The Bowman, and gave birth to this legend of the Angels of the Mons, that various angels and heavenly hosts and King Arthur and St. George appeared to help the brave, beleaguered British Tommies and get them out of Stuck while facing advancing German hordes. And so this story I was talking about, the fairy, that was written kind of in response to that as well. And it is making points about sort of myth and how sort of, myth and, the real horrors of the real world intersect, and and the power of stories. Yeah. But Del Toro produced an interesting film. It's a remake of an American TV movie. Is it called Don't Go Into the Cellar?
Oh yeah. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, or
Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. That's it. Yes, it's a remake of an American TV movie, and the sort of Del Toro produced. So the remake takes the basic story, goes in a very different direction with it, and turns it into like a dark fairy tale. And that actually, explicitly name checks Arthur Macken, because Macken had a whole theory that the fairies of myth. He was like trying to turn the tide of the Victorian Edwardian cutification of these, essentially, very old, powerful, archetypal sort of, figures that were wild and capricious and often dangerous, and not these, little flighty things and cute Tinkerbells.
And going back right to the very beginning, so does that mean that could almost be another one for Chris?
Pretty much, yes.
Coming back to this whole challenge of finding something with fairies in it. But that's that. I've never seen Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I know of its existence. I know the remake had was it Guy Pearce?
Yes, Mike from Neighbours.
Yeah, Mike from Neighbours. He's never going to get over that, is he?
Not on this cast.
But anyway, yeah. Okay, well, maybe it's worth checking that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the remake. I mean, it's not on the level of Pan's Labyrinth, but I thought it was a lot of fun. The original TV movie is pretty good as well. It's kind of one of those things from that strange period in American TV where they produce a really dark and really quite hard-hitting TV movies. I mean, these are, you think, TV movies, a byword for anodyne, badly put together crap. But they said there was, this the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark came out the same era as sort of, Spielberg was doing Duel as a TV movie.
All right, yeah. I was actually. There was another TV movie horror thing, which was like an anthology, which I always remember discussing with someone who's on the Facebook group, Pete McClachlan, and he and I were talking about this thing which had like a devil doll, like a voodoo doll, like a witch.
Tales of Terror.
Tales of Terror. That's it.
There's the Zuni fetish doll that comes to life and chases Karen Black around her apartment.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tales of Terror.
Tales of Terror. There you go.
Scripted by Richard Matheson.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, sorry. I just remember you mentioning it on a Hypnagogia and me going, I must remember that, and never did because I'm an idiot. But anyway, well, thanks very much for that. Another bit.
No worries.
But and also thank you, Michael. Thank you for your feedback, sir. And again, like I say, just to reiterate, I hope things improve over there for you and for everyone in America, to be honest. But we have a lot of American listeners who are quite worried right now, and quite rightly so, because I think were the roles reversed, I'd probably be the same. But hopefully we're all, just stay strong. Yeah, he's already rolling back on some of the things he's saying. So let's just hope he just carries on, and it was all just a load of old bollocks just to get himself a job. Can't really say that he was, but let's just keep one little tiny shred of optimism in a really bleak situation. But this is not a political podcast. Let's keep going. Good feedback, sir. Thank you very much again, and we'll speak to you soon, no doubt. So, on to our last bit of MP3 feedback, and that is Drew and Tracy, and they have this to say about Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay, yo.
Yes, I had to convince you to watch this, didn't I? Because he is really dedicated to it. I've seen this film a couple of times. I think it's a wonderful film.
Do you know what? When you said, like, Blackdog are doing, like, Pan's Labyrinth, I did do the big, what the fuck for? But actually, I have to say, I fucking love this film.
I know. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely love this film. I've put my last comment of the film is one of my top 10
Yeah.
now.
Oh, I absolutely love this film so much.
I'll
Definitely.
tell you what, fucking Captain Fucky McFuckface cunt bastard shithead had me going from the beginning. I wanted to kill him.
I'd say he's an unpleasant character.
Yeah. I kept saying to you, oh, he's a fucking arsehole.
Oh,
and you
he is,
just
yes.
watch it. Because, obviously you'd seen this, we have seen this before, but
I think you've slept
far
through
more
it.
notice of it than
you
me.
slept through it, yeah.
But my God, this fucking had me, my emotions are running so high.
I know.
I love Ophelia.
I know, she's
wonderful. I love Mercedes. I thought it was quite good that I was drinking Estrella as we were watching this film. It was quite apt, to be fair.
Yeah, I it's a film of two parts, isn't it? Because it's so harsh with the Spanish fascists, isn't it? And is like the fairy tale stuff true? I don't know.
I don't know. See, that's the thing at the end. Did she ascend into her father's kingdom?
I choose to believe that, because if she didn't, then it's really upsettingly sad. Yes, I choose to believe that magic is real on this film for once. I never normally go for that kind of thing, but it's all magic, and she lived happily ever after.
You have to totally believe in magic.
Oh, yes.
At some point, so yeah, let's leave it that she went into her father's kingdom.
Yeah,
and
because if she didn't, then this film.
Because I kept saying to you that Fawn's a fucking dodgy bastard, isn't he? I don't trust him to start with. But then he came out at the end, and if you believe in magic and fairy tales, then it was true. He was trying to get her to fulfill her prophecy and come into the magic land. I liked it. Yeah. I wasn't expecting to.
I love it.
Is this an Educating Elton?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yes.
well, Elton, I hope you like this.
Yeah.
It's an Educating Tracy Barker, and I liked it, so...
Yeah. I think it was splendid on my third ever watch. I loved it. I'd watch it again
Absolutely.
tomorrow.
If this was on the
great.
Disney box, like
yeah,
later, I'd be like, oh yeah, let's give it a watch.
Yep.
I loved it.
Okay.
Can't fault it.
Yep.
Leave it there?
Yes.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for that, guys. Yeah, see? Everyone's learning today. And even though he's not here right now, I hope you know by now that Elton did very much appreciate the film. And I think it's a success all round, really.
I don't think no one's really had much issue with it, really, have they?
No. I mean
that's very rare on this podcast.
Well, yeah, definitely. But like I say, you know, it even took me a little bit away from my usual cynicism, where I could have just turned around and just beat it to death with a stick and said, "Why is these things happening?" But no, I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone else has. Well, Gareth Lloyd was a bit up and down, but you know, overall, it's beautiful escapism. And as we now know from the horse's mouth, thanks to Michael, the belly stapler Cornett, it is actually all real. Does that make things better or worse that we got it actually confirmed, do you think?
It's just one of those, it's kind of, it's nice to know what the director thinks, but you've always got that kind of, hate to use the term postmodern, but there is that idea that, you know, a curator creates something and he can intend it to be one thing, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's you, the viewer or reader, or, you know, you will have your own reaction to it. And so there's nothing can ever be definitively, it means this.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You can create thing with a meaning, but how it gets interpreted by the world is completely subjective, and so he can't do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. I'm sure knowing Del Toro. I mean, I'm sure he absolutely loves the fact that people interpret it in all different ways. Because I mean, he's a man. He's a fan himself, and he loves this kind of stuff as much as we do. So
yeah,
he'd be delighted that it provokes reactions and argument and discussion and thought about it.
Well, I tell you what, if he's listening and he wants to come on the podcast, he's more than welcome. And we'd love to talk to him about it. You know what happens. Someone will go and speak to him and we'll shit ourselves if he says it. Yeah. But no, it would be lovely if we did talk to someone about that, because, especially someone like him who's passionate about these kind of things, it would be fantastic. Yeah. But, yeah. Wow. Well, there you go. That's the end of the podcast, everyone. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in their feedback. It's been great cast. Shame that the hosts have slowly dropped off as the evening has worn on. But it is now 1:10, so it's kind of understandable. Before we go, Jim, would you like to promote your wares, sir? Because I was just listening to your podcast and it was very good. It's given me a couple of ideas for stuff.
Excellent. Well, so this week I'm doing a little books roundup on a comics theme, which you can find at Geek Planet Online, iTunes. This edition is Microgoria, the shorter flavour of my podcast, and I'm looking at a big book on pre-code horror comics called The Horror, and two newly published ones. One, a reprint of some classic British girls' horror comics, Misty, and a new adaptation by Liam Moore and John Reppion of the first 4 stories of Emma James's first volume of Ghost Stories of an Antiquary.
Yeah, that sounded really good. I was really kind of keen on that one, I have to be honest.
It's a lovely, lovely book. And so they've got 4 different artists doing 4 different stories. And they're all kind of... It's interesting they've picked kind of pretty much like not established comics artists.
Yeah.
But more kind of actually illustrators. And I know they're putting together a volume 2. And this fielding for another interesting selection of artists for that, but nice. I think it works really well. It's a beautiful book, It was one of those. Is kind of I pre-ordered it when it was announced. It was coming out about 6 months ago, and then just turned up there. Oh, brilliant! I've forgotten about that.
Nice, excellent, and well, actually, I was going to say, and what about you, Elton? But obviously, he's not here. So, So I tell you what, sod it. go Google up shonkylab.com. Or shonkylab.co.uk and take it from there. So it just leaves us to tell you what we're doing next week. I think we mentioned it earlier on in the cast, but it's been so long ago I don't know anymore.
Yes, we did, I think. We did.
Cool. I couldn't remember if we were recording at that point. Okay, so next week we got this as a request from a load of people wanted to, basically do this one. And it was going to be on the 4 weeks of horror, but then it was going to take too long to get round to it. And, well, you know what? Just fuck it, we thought. Just do it. And it is the fake documentary comedy starring Jermaine Clements from Flight of the Conchords. And I'm not even going to pronounce the other guy who is the director and is also directing Thor Ragnarok, because I'll get it completely wrong. It's like something like Tikiki Waki or something like that. Okay, man looks up thing on the internet. Okay. Thor 3 director. There you go. Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi? It doesn't make any difference even if I bloody Google it. So anyway, he directed it. He stars in this film. It is What We Do in the Shadows, a comedy.
And if we just said, "Waiter, there's a frog in my bidet" in some foreign language, we do apologise.
Yeah, exactly. If we have insulted someone in Peru, then I can only apologise. It was not my intention. But anyway, yeah, and Christopher Yost, who's in Flight of the Conchords as well. So yes, and Craig Kyle, I think he's been in Flight of the Conchords as well. Basically, it's Flight of the Conchords in all but name. But it's vampires and a documentary crew, and it's funny. And it's been out for a while, but it wasn't seen by a lot of people. But it's on Netflix now, so go check it out. Jim, have you seen this film?
I have indeed.
And did you like this film?
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought this was a great little movie. Offbeat, a lot of fun. Lots and lots of layers to unpick, I think. Yeah. Lots of references dropped and allusions and some very, very clever sort of spins on established horror tropes to great comic effect.
Yes. Cool. Excellent. And by the way, all those people I mentioned, Christopher Yost and all that kind of thing, that was actually on the page for Thor Ragnarok. So even those people aren't in it, even though I said they were. So I'm being a complete knob, but I just thought I'd beat everyone to it before everyone starts telling me, because I've made an absolute cock up of this. So there you go. That's what you get for a 20 past 1 podcast. I love this as well. I love What We Do in the Shadows. I think it's really cool. I've got some got some moments where I'm kind of like a bit funny about it, but I think it's well worth a look, and I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. So do send your feedback in to blackdog@geekplanetonline.com. Get involved on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/the Blackdog Podcast. Again, tell us what you want for episode 300. If you want to do anything, no suggestion will be turned down yet. We might not do them, but it won't hurt to just throw it out there. Also, what was the other thing I wanted to ask for? Oh, yeah, fairy stories with fairies that are more like creatures as opposed to fucking Tinkerbell. Throw them up there as well. And, that's about it, really, isn't it? I think I've covered everything.
I think so, yes.
Good. Okay. Yes, thanks very much, everyone. I'm cocking up the ending.
It is late, though. It's very late.
It is very late. I am very tired. Jim, thank you so much for sticking with me. It's been even more odd with me talking to myself, and I'd probably still be doing the ending in 6 hours' time.
No worries.
So, until next time, until next week, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very so much for listening. Thank you for all your feedback, and we'll see you next week for What We Do in the Shadows. Till then, take care. Tatty bye.
Bye-bye.
God, I'm tired.
Oh, bollocks to it.